You guys are specialized in a very particular type of question. You're the biggest advocates for sales here. So when you get hired, I want you to
Well, that's more of a problem with date. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, the time is now 2 o'clock. You have quorum.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and get this going. We've got quite a bit on the agenda today. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the October Historic Preservation Commission meeting. My name is Taylor Fudge. I'm chair of this commission, and I believe this is our second in-person meeting since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're very excited to be back. I will say, due to the pandemic, we've been forced to delay HP meetings over the past couple of months, so please accept our apologies for the inconvenience and be patient with us as we work through the agenda and get back in the swing of things. There's quite a bit to cover today. Also want to give a special shout out to staff for keeping things moving as we were out the last couple of months. As a reminder, we do ask that you refrain from individual conversation and distraction in the gallery to ensure commission members and applicants can be heard. Please keep quiet until you're called upon to speak. And when you do, please state your name and address for the record. We are seeking to minimize distractions and ensure everyone can be heard efficiently so we can get you out of here as quickly as possible today, which I think everyone can appreciate. As instructed in the agenda, those who called or emailed in advance to let us know their name and contact number and the agenda item they wish to discuss will be recognized first. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Anyone speaking, we have 5 minutes up here. I've got 3 minutes on my sheet. We'll try and keep it at least to 5-minute remarks. So relay information, we're going to work really hard to stay on that schedule, so please remember that time frame when you're visiting with the commission members. If we do have to stop this meeting for any reason and we're unable to continue for whatever reason, all remaining items will be moved to the next regularly scheduled Historic Preservation Commission meeting on Wednesday, November 3rd at 2 p.m. here in the Municipal Building's Council Chambers. The agenda and documents are located at primegov.com. Please select the agenda item on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see all the items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before the meeting are posted online or shared with commission members, and no new materials can be introduced during today's meeting. Princess, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Fudge.
Present.
Commissioner Raymond Phillip.
Present.
Commissioner Farzana.
Present.
Commissioner Meacham. Commissioner Milner.
Present.
Commissioner Poore.
Present.
Commissioner Remy. Mr. Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you.
Okay, it's on.
Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For the sake of time, I ask that any participants refer to that section if they're unfamiliar with our process. A couple items specifically to note regarding certificates of appropriateness. When an application is approved and after the 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail a certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until that certificate of appropriateness is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review, inspection, or to withdraw items that will not be completed. The next item of note is appeals to the Board of Adjustments. Any person that is aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA today may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals will be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, do we have any news from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer? And do we need to move any items today on our agenda?
We do have a couple of items that we would like to ask the commission to consider moving up the docket. First, I just want to note that you may notice there are less people up here. We have had 2 commission members. One has resigned after a very long service on the commission, and another that opted not to be reappointed at the end of her last term, Ann Zacharitz and Linda Schultz. We typically do a resolution recognizing them at the next commission meeting. Because we have such a long agenda, we didn't do a resolution this time, but we'll have that before you all for the next meeting. That does mean that our quorum's 4 instead of 5, so that's why we have more than a quorum for this meeting. But wanted to recognize them for their service and their time that they've given to the commission over many, many years. Just a few brief tips for the commission, since we haven't been in person in a while on using the equipment. You've got a button to switch between your computer screen and the presentation screen so that you can see the PowerPoint on your monitor. You also have a button to turn your speaker on that's right here by your computer so that you can hear everything that's on the mics. And you have a speaker button to turn off and on when you are speaking so that everyone in the audience can hear you and so that it can be recorded. And just, lean over and whisper to staff if you're struggling to get through any of the PrimeGov materials. That's all I have. As far as moving items up, we have 2 items on which one commission member will have to recuse. And then we had several other items under other business that seemed appropriate to move up so that we could handle those quickly before we get into the items for individual consideration. Staff would like to ask the commission to move other business, items 1 through 6, up under to be heard immediately following the consent docket.
Do we need to make a motion to move those, or can we just?
Yes, I believe they need to make a
Okay.
motion to do that.
I'll make a motion to move other business to be heard after the consent docket.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Klaus Ryman Phillips, seconded by Cassie Poor. All in favor? Do we vote in PrimeGov, or do we just vote here?
We can just do a voice vote since that's not an item that's recorded on the agenda, and
Okay.
we'll record that in the minutes. Item 6.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Commissioner Milner?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I will say, Rita, I think you're correct. That is item 7, isn't it? Yeah, so I guess let the record show item 7.
Item 7, other business, items 1 through 6 will be
Yes, correct. Sorry.
heard after the cases for individual consideration. Is that?
That is
Where are we
correct.
moving that?
Too many to be heard immediately following the consent docket.
The consent docket. Got it. Okay. Okay.
There are 2 items that needed to be continued as well, right, on the individual?
Yes, we get to that under continuance announcements and requests.
Okay. Okay. Have my fellow commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the July 7th meeting? And do we have a motion to accept or modify?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the July meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Poor, second by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
So for this one, we can vote in PrimeGov. Sorry, guys.
Ah, okay.
Kind of threw that at you. So you should have an option to motion for Commissioner Poor to motion, Commissioner Ryman Phillip to second, and then it'll come up for you to vote.
The joys of technology.
Yes.
Okay. For some reason, I am struggling to figure that out in PrimeGov. Okay. Let's see. So we will accept the minutes from the July 7th meeting. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
So I'm sorry, we do have to make sure that it's recorded everyone's
Yes.
vote, and it looks like it's still waiting for, yeah.
I
Can
do
we
not have one for fudge or Remy.
I would vote verbally to accept the minutes.
Was
And-
that Commissioner Fudge?
That was-
Commissioner Fudge,
Okay.
yes. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Milner, I haven't voted either. And
And I didn't hear who that was.
Commissioner Milner votes aye.
Okay. The vote passes.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Okay, vote carries. Katie, anything from code enforcement for both August and September up to this point?
Nothing specific to report. As always, you can reach out to the Action Center or to HP staff if you have questions about a specific violation or citation listed in the code enforcement report.
Perfect. And continuance announcements or requests?
We have no uncontested requests that were listed on the agenda. We have 2 new requests for HPCA 21-00134 and HPCA 21-00135 to be continued to the November 3rd meeting. So we would need a motion on each of those to continue to November 3rd.
Do we have a motion on HPCA 21-00134 to be continued to the November 3rd meeting?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 21-00134 to the November 3rd HP meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Did you have the option to vote? Okay.
That isn't on the agenda.
So it's, we would just need to do the vote under the new requests, but we can just do a voice vote and we'll record that. We'll update in the minutes to record that one accurately. If you'll just do a roll call vote, Princess.
Okay. Commissioner Fudge,
I will, yay. Sorry.
Commissioner Raymond Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Farzana,
Aye.
Commissioner Milner,
aye.
Commissioner Poore.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Do we have a motion on HPCA 21-00135 to continue that to the November 3rd meeting?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 21-00135 to the November 3rd meeting.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor? We could do another verbal vote.
Commissioner Fudge,
Aye.
Commissioner Raymond Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Farzana,
Aye.
Commissioner Milner,
Aye.
Commissioner Poore.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Okay, Katie, anything on the public hearings section of the agenda?
Under dilapidated structures, we have none. We have 3 items under National Register nominations, so we'll go through each of those quickly. We do have staff from the Oklahoma State Historic Preservation Office that can speak to any questions about these nominations. I'm going to briefly talk about the first and second item together because they're kind of a grouping. A National Register NRHP 21-00003 is for the Bradford Building at 27 East Sheridan in Bricktown. It is a commercial warehouse structure that is eligible for its historic significance as well as architectural significance. It's representative of territorial era Oklahoma City's commercial development and the warehouse district that is now known today as Bricktown. Related to that is NRHP 21-00004, which is an amendment to the Red Brick Warehouses of Oklahoma City thematic registration. This is a kind of historic context document that is used to provide a background for the Bricktown district under which other properties can be individually listed in the National Register of Historic Places. This one was done in 1983, was missing several sections that are now included in those documents and registration criteria that are required to be addressed in the nomination. So as part of doing the Bradford Building National Register nomination, they also prepared an amendment to that registration form. The commission needs to motion to provide a recommendation to City Council and to adopt the resolution associated with each of those nominations.
Okay, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular item? And can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, I'm Matthew Pierce. I'm the National Register Coordinator for SHPO, so I'm here to answer any questions you have about this nomination.
Awesome. Commissioners, do we have any questions about the nomination for this particular item? Or do we have a motion for recommendation to adopt the resolution?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to City Council for NRHP 21-00003.
Do we have a second?
And just to be clear. Sorry, just to be clear, and to adopt the resolution as provided as part of the staff report.
Okay, and to adopt the resolution as part of the staff report.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
We will have to do a voice vote for Commissioner Milner.
I vote aye.
And that motion was by Commissioner Ryman Phillips.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Okay. We will move on to item number 2 in RHP 21-00004 in Bricktown Ward 7. I'm assuming you're going to speak on this item or this behalf as well.
Yes, as
Okay.
Katie had mentioned earlier, this is the thematic application that goes with the previous nomination.
Perfect. Any questions from commissioners or a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution as outlined in the staff report and to recommend approval to the City Council to adopt this resolution. NRHP 21-00004.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
And I will have to take a voice vote for Commissioner Milner.
I vote aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent, thank you. Perfect, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3 in RHP 21-00005 at 200 North Chartel Avenue.
This is a National Register nomination for the Oklahoma City PWA Police Headquarters, commonly known as the Old City Jail. This nomination recognizes the building's historic significance under its historic significance for community planning and development, and for its association with the civil rights movement in Oklahoma City, and as well as its architectural significance as an excellent example of the Art Deco style applied to a civic building. And the commission is asked to provide a recommendation to the mayor and city council and to adopt the resolution as part of the staff report.
Okay. Let's see, do we have any questions from commission members on this particular nomination? Do we have a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution as outlined in the staff report and to recommend approval to the mayor and city council for NRHP 21-00005.
I'll second that motion.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
And I will take a voice vote for Commissioner Milner.
I vote aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that was quick for the national registration nominations. We'll move on to the consent docket. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any items that need to be pulled, reviewed, or discussed? Do we have a motion to approve the items on the consent docket?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent docket.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
I will have to conduct a voice vote. Commissioner Fudge,
Aye.
Commissioner Raman Phillip,
Aye.
Commissioner Farzana,
Aye.
Commissioner Milner,
Aye.
Commissioner Poore.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Okay, if you were on the consent docket, you can stick around if you'd like, but you are free to go as your projects have been approved. Thank you for everybody that submitted those items. Let's see, so we will move item numbers. We've moved item number 7. I'm sorry, is it item number 7? Yeah, other business.
Yes.
Let's see, which one are we discussing first?
Our next item will be SPUD 01327 under other business. I do want to make clear, we're having some issues with PrimeGov, and it is not showing the final count on the vote of who motioned, who seconded, and who voted yay or nay. So I want to just confirm with legal, do we need to be stating that the vote was, have the clerk state that the vote was unanimous?
Yes, we need to do that. And you're hearing each person make a motion and the second, and you're hearing the vote. But yes, we will start announcing that the vote was unanimous or what the vote was.
We need to, typically on PrimeGov, it will come up on the screen and you will see each of the commission members' names and who voted yes or no. And for some reason, it is not doing that when we're voting. It may be because it's not registering some people's votes. But I'll ask Princess, as you can see on your screen, that the motions have all been entered, if you can relay that out back to us to confirm if it was unanimous or if there was a split vote, and if so, who voted in which way.
I will do that, Katie.
Thank you. Okay, so, yes.
Yeah, I'll mention that I need to recuse myself from items 1 and 2 under other business, so I will go ahead and recuse myself and be back for item 3.
Katie, does that mean that we still have quorum?
Yes.
With Klaus leaving? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, so we will talk about, I think my agenda, I think I might have an older agenda because I've got SPUD 01, okay. Let's see, other business, item number SPUD 01327 at 1720 North Chartel.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Mason Schwartz, WBFD Law, on behalf of Omega Investments for Ruffin Reynolds LLC for a recommendation to the Planning Commission regarding a request to rezone to a simplified planned unit development in accordance with the regulations of the Historic Preservation Zoning District, except with the restrictions and uses called out within this SPUD. Primarily, this SPUD is intended to allow an office use, as this property, which predates the designation of the Historic District, is an office, and they want to make that use legally non-conforming. Staff has recommended a recommendation of approval with one condition addressing the allowances for signage, just that should be consistent with what's allowed for the district. I should note that this one kind of went out of order because of our issues with achieving a quorum. This one has already been heard by Planning Commission and is scheduled, and they did recommend approval to City Council. It's scheduled to go to City Council this coming Tuesday.
Perfect, okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. As staff had said, this is a bit of a unique one in that these office buildings predate the HP ordinance. My client sought to buy these buildings. The problem is, under the current ordinance, the buildings are considered legally non-conforming. So if a fire or tornado or other event were to happen and these were to be demolished by more than a certain percentage called out in the ordinance, he wouldn't be allowed to build it back because it is zoned HP and office is not a use allowed by HP. So the only way to remedy that is to rezone it. And so what we've done is through the SPUD process, rezoned it and maintained all of the HP regulations and simply added the one use for office. So any new development that would occur on the site would have to come back through HP for a CA. So we're retaining your authority to review any new project, but simply allowing the use so that my client can close on this piece of property. So And as Katie said, it did already go to Planning Commission. Their recommendation was unanimous. And so we're asking you for a recommendation to go to the City Council. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from commission members? Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular issue?
And we did not receive any comments from the neighborhood association or any adjacent property owners on this application.
Well, I see no reason not to make the recommendation. Do we have a motion?
Can I? Oh, there we go. I'd like to motion that we recommend approval with conditions as stated in the staff report for SPUD 01327.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in Prime Gov.
I'm waiting for the second in Prime Gov.
Yes,
I might have clicked the move by. Sorry.
It's fine. I can second.
You can second. Perfect.
Yeah, we got this.
We will change to moved by Commissioner Farzana, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in Prime Gov.
Teamwork. We're good.
There we go.
Perfect.
Oh, we can vote now.
There. Ta-da.
Okay, motion
Thank you.
passes. Four votes aye, 1 vote abstain.
Yep.
No votes no. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we will move on to item number SPUD 0136 at 2528 North Chartel Avenue.
This is also located at its 2 separate properties, which is unusual for an SPUD. It's located at 2528 North Chartel and at 722 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Mark Zitzow, Johnson & Associates on behalf of M68 LLC for a recommendation to the Planning Commission regarding a request to rezone to a simplified planned unit development while remaining in accordance with the regulations of the historic landmark and NC zoning districts, except with the restrictions and uses called out within the SPUD. The Commission saw a presentation on this proposed SPUD several months ago. The main change since that time is that all of the commercial uses were eliminated from the allowed uses in the SPUD. This was presented to Planning Commission previously as well, but they continued it to the October 14th Planning Commission meeting. There were some protests from surrounding property owners, neighborhood residents that attended Planning Commission, and so it was continued in response to those concerns that were expressed. HP staff has not received any letters, protests from other property owners for this particular item that's on the agenda today. And staff did recommend approval with just one condition, that the signage for the property be consistent with what's currently allowed for multifamily properties of the same scale in the NC-based zoning district.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir. Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, on behalf of the applicant. I appreciate everyone's time today. As Ms. Friddle mentioned, we previously presented this application before notice was ever sent out. We started this process a little bit differently than most projects, I think. So at Commissioner Milner's request, we held a neighborhood meeting. We had about 12 people show up. We worked with the Paseo Neighborhood Association and the Jefferson Park Neighborhood Association, held a meeting. We left that meeting, I think, with positive feedback. The request was to remove all of the commercial uses. It was determined that in the future, if the church was to ever be redeveloped with a commercial use, they would just come back for an SPUD with a specific plan, hours of operation, parking plan, all of that. Our client agreed to that. From there, we headed to Planning Commission, and I believe the week of Planning Commission, we received a call about a protest. So we went to Planning Commission, there was protest. We're continuing to work with them. We have a meeting actually scheduled for next Monday. We think we'll be able to work through those. I think there are general concerns and questions and maybe some misinformation about pricing that's been put out about this project. So we're continuing to work through that. In terms of HP, we have retained all of the rights that the Commission has to review this project at a later date. And I'll reiterate, our client is committed to preserving the church. What you will see when an application comes forward, assuming this gets approved, on the new build, you will see an application to do some mitigation to prevent further deterioration of the church. What that is going to look like is likely going to be facade repair, window repair, and roof repair to prevent water from further destroying the property. We agree with staff's recommendation. We'd ask for your approval. The only thing I wanted to mention was the sign. If we could maybe slightly alter the condition on the signage. There's an existing sign for the church that you can see in that photo. Any signage that would be proposed that would be freestanding, we would seek to reuse that structure. So that would still be under your purview when an application came forward. Any attached signage would be in accordance with the base zoning district. But in terms of freestanding, we wouldn't seek to add a new sign. We would seek to reuse the sign that has been on that property for many years in association with the church. So with that, happy to answer any questions. I know there are some neighbors here that will likely want to speak.
Perfect. Questions from commissioners? Okay. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Thank you for speaking on
Thank you.
that.
And I believe we do have representatives from the neighborhood that would like to speak on this item.
Please state your name and address for the record, too, please.
You need me to sign this?
Yes.
Nedra Jones. Is that good? Nedra Jones, 701 Northwest 26th Street, Oklahoma City. What the neighborhood is doing right now, and Mark has been very gracious to help us, kind of miscued when it started. The largest percentage of the neighborhood was unaware that this was going on. So when that happens, and I've been down there 30 years, you get gossip and stories, and I'm sure y'all are familiar with that. So what we're doing now is making it real plain to everybody what's going on, and we will have this meeting Monday. We are very protective of our real estate there. We love this church, and if we don't want it torn down, I don't. The idea of moving, I personally don't want it turned down, and I hope that they don't either. Having something on the other side of the house, too, is a problem for me, too. That street has parking problems, which y'all don't. I know that's not your thing. I'm not real crazy about the architecture of the new building either. Okay, I get to say that. And I know that's all y'all are charged with, is dealing with the architecture, so I'm going to say goodbye. Do y'all have any questions for me?
I will just note in reference to the parking, and
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'll just note in reference to the parking, just for the commission's knowledge, and it says this in the staff report, that the site plan does include angled parking along Chartel. Because that is not within the property, it's not part of the SPUD, but the parking spaces that they provide are tied to the dwelling units that are allowed. This is something that was discussed in Planning Commission. Parking spaces like that would require reconfiguring the curb line and the sidewalk would come back to HP for further review and would also have to go to Traffic Commission for a recommendation. That recommendation would come to HP. So that's not incorporated within the SPUD at this time, but it would come back through the commission for review. And you do have some renderings of a proposed structure that would be the new construction south of the church. And obviously that whole new construction would come back to the commission for review as well.
I did want to state, too, one of the problems we had, and it's been remiss in the neighborhood, I used to be on this commission a long time ago. We need to have better contact with staff, and we have some people that are going to contact you with their email address. So when we have an issue in the Paseo, you can let us know about it. And we do want to work on having a group, an organization within the neighborhood that works with people to help them get their CA, because there seems to be some confusion on that, and we want to help. So I'm not just coming asking for help. I'm going to give you some help, too.
Good.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. See any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular item?
My name is Ella Gibson, and I live down the street from this project. And I went around and got a petition going from the neighbors that live right by this project. And they do not want the zoning changed. They love the church. The neighbors, even though we're not really supposed to talk about it, I guess, is the parking. That was what they all brought up to me, was the parking issue, and worried about the traffic. And we also believe that these two properties should be separate, brought to you, because 722 is a lot, where this is a church with a parking lot. So I ask that that be, if possible, separated for the HP to decide. And for what Mark Zitzo addressed on the letters that were sent out, that they, from what I know, some people didn't get them. Maybe there was a miscommunication and so forth. And of course, we are going to meet with him to go over our concerns and so forth. I can also tell you that across the way, there is a really cute 4 or 6 units. I'm not sure how many, but the gentleman that owns it is here, and maybe he's going to speak. But they do park in the church parking lot due to lack of parking. And so that's a concern for the neighbors as well. Any questions?
Don't know that we can do anything with the parking issue.
Right,
I
right.
recognize
I
that that's
understand.
a challenge.
But we definitely, want to keep everything within the guidelines. And I have looked at that, and from what I understand, is it doesn't have to be as tall as what is there because of the housing that is right next to it. So that's why a lot of us feel that, it's not appropriate.
So Katie, are we just making the recommendation to send this to Planning Commission? We're not really discussing the intricacies of the design today, correct?
Right. The SPUD does have language in it specific to the height, that any structure built to the south of the church would be no taller than the church, and that's consistent with HP guidelines. And that provides a height limit for the 722 Northwest 25th Street property as well, that's consistent with what HP would allow. It can be within the range of heights established along the block. And again, that would come back for an actual review of a CA when they go to build a structure there. Okay. As far as the concern about it being split separately, when a CA application is filed, they have to have a separate CA for each address. They won't be able to do one CA for all of these properties because they have to have one that lines up with each property address. The rules are different for how an SPUD can go through the process, although I think that same concern was raised at Planning Commission that, well, should these be 2 separate properties? But I don't know that that's really relevant to the Commission's concern in reviewing the SPUD. That's more of a procedural matter for Subdivision and Zoning and Planning Commission to decide.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
Do you want a copy or this?
Yes. If you'll give that to Princess right here, we're happy to take a copy of that for the record.
Thank you. Would you like it back? Okay.
If you'd prefer, you can certainly scan it and email it to us. That would be fine.
Actually, we need to have it now.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Our municipal counselor has corrected me. We need to have a copy of it now, if that's okay, and we can scan it and then get it back to you. Okay. All right. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. Anybody else that wishes to speak on this particular item?
Hello. My name is Keith Gibson. I do have a property just to the west of this. And Mrs. Gibson, the issue with the cars parking in that parking lot is was made by the owners of the cars, not because there's inadequate parking on my property. So just to clarify that, I know parking is a premium anywhere, and we've provided it, and my hopes are they will as well. But I'm here to salute you and whatever I can do to promote you. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay, any other citizens that wish to be heard on this particular item? Mr. Zitzow, anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would just like to clarify a few items. One is the parking. I appreciate that comment that was made, that those parking there are doing so illegally. They do not have the permission of the property owner. We believe we're providing adequate parking given future BRT along Classen, future bike lanes, and increased bike infrastructure along Chartel. Just to clarify for the record, we do not send out public notice. That is handled through the city. Our outreach, we went directly through 2 neighborhood associations. It was shared with me that the Paseo neighborhood posted it on their Nextdoor app, which has 490 Paseo residents, as well as another 60 additional emails to anyone who's shown up within the last 3 years of their neighborhood association meeting. So we've really been trying, this is in no way trying to prevent citizens to be heard or comment on this. We've been diligently active in trying to set this meeting, which we have another one scheduled for Monday. And then Ms. Fertile mentioned it, the fourplex, when it comes time for the CA, all of these are going to come in as individual discussion items. So for the zoning, we think the fourplex on that lot is completely appropriate, in line with current city policies and the HP guidelines. With that, happy to answer any other questions, but we would ask for your recommendation of approval today.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Mark, I did want to say thank you for meeting with the neighborhood. You are right, that was a big concern of mine. And I think you guys have arrived at a really good decision on pulling the commercial applications out from just because of where this was located in the neighborhood. I appreciate that as well. I do want to ask, am I hearing right that is there another meeting open to all neighbors Monday evening coming up?
Yes, sir. It's at 5:30 at Johnson & Associates offices. It's 1 East Sheridan Avenue.
Okay.
My email for the tens of thousands watching at home, mark@jaokc.com. You can email me. I'd be happy to discuss the project with anyone.
Is there a particular, I'm just trying to find out what is going to be happening at that meeting as we're sitting here on Wednesday approving recommendation, but it does sound like there's still concerns in the neighborhood. Obviously, the parking situation is not one that we can hammer out here. That's got to go to traffic. But I just want to make sure, understand, we're just approving a recommendation for this to continue through its course, planning and traffic. It's got to come back to us when they get to finalize design plans. Is that right?
Yes. So
And each of these is going to come separately. So this church lot's going to come as one, and then this other property address, which is going to be, is that going to be a fourplex? Is that what that is?
That's what it would permit up to.
Permit up to, and that's got to come separate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So right now, we are providing a recommendation to Planning Commission as to whether or not the HP Commission thinks the proposed SPUD is consistent with The guidelines with the historic character of the neighborhood will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the neighborhood, just in regard to the proposed zoning language and what it would allow. It will come back to the commission for a much more detailed and specific review of any new construction or any work to the church that is proposed. So the commission would have the opportunity, if the commission felt that the uses or other allowances for the development of the property that the SPUD included were not appropriate, the commission could forward those comments on to the planning commission as well. And we've done that in the past on some proposed SPUDs. At this point, staff has recommended approval, but that's ultimately the commission's call if you think the way that they've proposed to redevelop these two sites is appropriate.
Okay. And back to the, I asked a question, then I didn't let you answer it. I'm sorry. What is there a particular topic that's on the agenda for Monday evening? That meeting?
There is not. So I think to this point, we have not received any formal letter of protest or any requests or changes to the SPUD. So I think Monday night, how we see this going is there will be a bit of a quick presentation on our end, explaining the project, clearing up, as Ms. Jones mentioned, maybe some things that got out that are not appropriate, affordable tax credits, things like that about this project that are just not true. And then we'll listen to what the residents have to say and what the concerns are. We do a lot of zoning and entitlement work, so we're used to kind of going back and forth with the neighbors. I think to this point, one of the only things that we've heard has been, we just want 2 or 3 single-family homes on this tract. So we're interested to get in front of however many people come to our meeting on Monday, and we will gladly, have our best effort to work through whatever items that they raise.
Okay, because the two citizens that I did hear speak, one common theme was about the church, wanting to keep the church, and it's not your intention to tear the church down.
That is correct. We've said at every meeting we've held, every phone call I've had, every public hearing at this podium, the owner, when they come in with the new apartment project, assuming it gets approved, will be coming in with facade repair, roof repair, and window repair at a minimum.
Okay.
So he is committed to preserving the church.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay. Any other comments on this particular project? Yes, Ms. Gibson, please come back up.
Well, I also spoke with the Oklahoma Bikers Club about this and the bike path that is there and how this is going to affect them. And they aren't happy with this either. So I just want to put that. And then in my petition, it says up here on how many apartments are already in Paseo, and we don't need any more apartments. So I'm going to give this to her.
Thank you.
And I just want to ask again, if this gets approved and moves forward, this application still has to go before traffic, correct?
Correct.
The Traffic Commission.
The parking as illustrated on their site plan would have to go to Traffic Commission and then on to City Council, is my understanding of that process. It actually has to go to HP for a recommendation to Traffic Commission, and then from Traffic Commission on to City Council to approve the back-end angled on-street parking. Now, they could come back and not even propose that as part of the final, site plan for the project. But as it's illustrated now, that would go through an entirely separate process for that parking to be allowed on Chartel as it's shown.
Okay. I just wanted to address that because that does seem to be the theme I'm hearing upon the residents is you are increasing the number of people living in a smaller, you're creating a more dense area. And I hear these residents saying that, and I completely understand their concerns. I just want to make sure, and the citizens that are here that spoke, please, the ball's rolling right now. If this gets, if we approve this, to get together as a neighborhood, study that street, look at, how cars are parking, where cars are going, any other, multifamily housing you have there, study that so you really have something to go to Traffic Commission for so they can really hear your concerns and you're going and telling them this is what this is what's actually happening on that street. You know, really document it so they know, because obviously we won't have any say in that, but I just as a commissioner want the residents to know, I hear you and I get this, but you're going to have that opportunity with the Traffic Commission, and take that opportunity, please. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Just quickly address the bike lane issue. We've continued to work with the planning department. There is a facility planned along this stretch of Chartel. It's undetermined what type that will be given the existing curb-to-curb width of the street. So right now what we are showing on a site plan is reverse angled parking. Our firm was the designer on the 39th Street District Streetscape project. Staff supported that, and council ultimately allowed for reverse angled parking when a Shara was present. That provided much greater visibility and safety for cyclists. If there is a scenario where on-street parking is not permitted, there is an alternative where the building gets brought up in line with the setbacks in the PUD, where there's just more parking behind the building. The preference is on-street parking, but you know, there's flexibility there as we move forward. So we are keenly aware of designing around bike infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
And is there, am I understanding, is that a designated bike lane or a bike path for the city? Is it Chartel or?
Yes. So north of
Chartel
here,
is.
there are separated bike lanes. I believe south of here, there are separated bike lanes. Through the core, what you see with Chartel is a variable right-of-way where you have a boulevard just north of here. In some places, it's slightly wider, which has allowed those separated and or protected bike lanes to be installed. In this stretch, it's the narrowest portion at 30 feet. And so that's what we're working through right now. If the city is willing to reduce vehicular lanes, then it's feasible that protected bike lanes get installed. But those are, our firm is not part of the bike design. What we've committed to, because we have to go to Traffic Commission, is that we'll work around it and we'll amend the site plan however we need to. And to your point, Commissioner Milner, this is far from the last step. We have Planning Commission, we have City Council, we'll have Traffic Commission, and we'll have an HP hearing for each portion of this project.
Okay, so staff has recommended approval on this. Do we have a motion to recommend approval on this particular item, or?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval with the conditions and findings of the staff report to the Planning Commission for SPUD 1336.
We have a second. From Commissioner Milner or Commissioner Farzana, do we have a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll second it.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
For clarification on the motion, was that no freestanding sign and the existing would have to be removed, or can we come back with a CA potentially reusing the existing sign?
Was that noted in the staff report?
Let me.
Monument sign to be reduced.
So I do think that if you have an existing sign, HP guidelines are going to be supportive of reusing that sign in its existing location and configuration. It would just be new signage that was being allowed in addition to that, that our recommendation was that that be consistent with what's allowed for the NC-based zoning for multifamily.
Does that work
So
for you?
it sounds like you're not intending
does,
to do
thank
that
you.
anyway. Okay.
Okay, all in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Motion carries. We have one who has abstained, and 1, 2, 3, 4 that voted yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to, is it the Freedom Center's presentation? Katie, was that the one we were going to move up in the?
So we moved up items 1 through 6 from
Oh,
other
all of them.
business. Yep.
Okay.
So we'll go quickly through these Board of Adjustment cases because I think these are pretty simple ones. BOA 14895 at 2225 North Dewey Avenue, Mesta Park, Ward 6, is consideration and possible action on application by Kelly and Ryan Jones for a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding a special exception to allow home sharing elective. This is a proposal to allow home sharing in an existing garage apartment I'm not sure the exact age of the garage apartment, but it's clearly an older structure. It is actually, I think, at various points in time has been addressed separately from the house. The property owner has agreed to follow all of the requirements of the special exception, that they're on site at the time of rental through home sharing. So they do appear to meet all of the qualifications and to be able to accommodate home sharing without making any kinds of inappropriate alterations to the historic property. So staff has recommended a recommendation of approval to Board of Adjustment.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular item? Do we have a motion from commissioners? Welcome back, Commissioner Raymond Phillip.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to recommend approval of BOA 14895.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Okay, that motion carries by unanimous decision. Moving on to item number 4, BOA 14902 at 436 Northwest 30th Street.
This is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Mumtaz Khan for recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding a variance to aisle standards in the C3 Community Commercial District and HLUCD Urban Conservation District, Jefferson Park. This is a variance that's required for the width of their driveway for commercial use. The property is zoned for commercial use, and the commission has already approved a certificate of appropriateness for the work related to this site, but did not, at the time that it was reviewed, we didn't know that they would need a variance, and so they are required to get a recommendation on the variance from the HP Commission. So what they proposed is consistent with the CA that was previously approved. Staff recommended a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment.
Is the applicant present? And do you want to come forward? Or anything? No, we'll wait till you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name's Jocelyn Lupkin, and I'm representing Mumtaz Khan for the property at 436 Northwest 30th. What we are asking for is to be able to have a 12-foot wide commercial standard single driveway in lieu of the residential driveway that's normally, I guess, accepted in the Jefferson Park Historic District. And what we're doing is we're doing away with a lot of the concrete paving that's currently in the front of the building. We're putting in a raised planting bed and handicapped accessible entrances. So we wanted to be able to access a rear parking area with the 12-foot drive in lieu of the residential with size drive.
Perfect. Okay. Any questions for the applicant from the commissioners? Thank you.
Okay.
Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I would motion, every time. I'd motion to recommend approval of BOA 14902.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in prime gov.
Commissioner Farzana, could you second in prime gov?
It's all right. I'll second.
All right.
Moved by Commissioner Farzana, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. That motion carries by unanimous decision. Moving on to item number BOA 14907 at 529 Northwest 22nd Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on an application by Adela de Leon Veliz for Big Truck Tacos for a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding a special exception to allow home sharing elective. And this has, other than the ownership of the property, this is not associated with Big Truck Tacos. It's a little confusing seeing that in the agenda. Big Truck Tacos is not home sharing out of their business. This property has previously had a special exception to allow home sharing in the past. It has expired, and they've had to go back through the process. The property owner has included in their application a signed document that they will be on site, present at the time of home sharing rentals. This one does not, to my knowledge, have an accessory building that is occupied as part of the home sharing, but they have stated that they'll meet all of the requirements of the special exception for home sharing in an HP district. Staff has recommended a recommendation of approval to Board of Adjustment.
Perfect. Is the applicant present?
Hello, my name is Adela de Leon. I'm applying for home sharing at 529 Southwest 22nd. And I don't know, do you have any question for me?
Do we have any questions from the commission? This one looks pretty straightforward to me. Doesn't look like we have any questions for you.
I'm sorry?
I said, doesn't look like we have any questions for you. That's probably a good thing. Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
Can I motion recommend approval of BOA 14907?
Only if you make the motion and Vahid doesn't.
Oh, he can. He got second that time.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Okay. Passed by unanimous decision. Moving on to item number 6. It's a presentation from the Freedom Center, 2609 North Martin Luther King Avenue.
So this is an informational presentation only regarding proposed rehabilitation of the Freedom Center. Some of you will remember that several years ago, the HP Commission and ultimately City Council designated the Freedom Center at 2609 North Martin Luther King as a historic landmark. The Freedom Center's board has been working diligently over the last several years to come up with a plan for the restoration, rehabilitation of the historic Freedom Center structure. There is a MAPS 4 project associated with the Freedom Center and Clara Luper Civil Rights Center, but this particular structure and the work being proposed to it done now is being privately funded and is not part of the MAPS 4 process. So it's being reviewed outside of that process. They do anticipate coming back to the HP Commission in the next couple of months for a certificate of appropriateness, but because of the unique history of this site, how the building has evolved over time, worked with staff and thought it would be useful to just briefly present to the commission what they're planning at this time and get initial feedback.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hi there.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm Leonard Benson. I'm the chairman of the board of directors of the Freedom Center. And I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our preliminary plan for the restoration of the Freedom Center. And joining me today is Mr. Colin Fleck, who is a partner with Balkus Payne, a firm that has been with us kind of from the beginning, and he will kind of share with you where we are now and our plans for the restoration of the center. Also joining me is a member of my board of directors, Mr. Calvin Whitaker, who's the chairman of our Building and Facilities Committee, and a longtime leader in the NAACP Youth Council. And in addition to that person, we have Christina Beatty, who is our new program coordinator, who came aboard with us back in April. And she has been a tremendous blessing to us of trying to put this together. Just in terms of a very, very brief kind of background, I recall that last month, it would have been 3 years, almost to the date, that the City Council, in its great wisdom, approved the recommendation of the HP Commission, of your commission, to designate the Freedom Center as a historic landmark in the city of Oklahoma City. At that time, is that a month later, is that I was appointed as the court-appointed receiver for the project to replace our one of the former city council person, Mrs. Willa Johnson. We've been busy. We have reconstituted the Freedom Center with some modern-day operational procedures for a 501c3 type organization. We have 15 great board members, some from who were involved with the NACP, persons such as Mrs. Marilyn Lupa Hildreth. We just lost a very, very good friend and supporter of this cause, Mr. Sam Bowman, who passed on this past Sunday afternoon, and that, and along with many others and many supporters. Our board made the decision that we wanted to do the restoration in the name of the Freedom Center, and that we have gone out and we have secured private funding through various grants and contributions from major funders in Oklahoma City in support of the effort. We're quite thankful and appreciative of the kind of support that has gone into. It's just been outstanding throughout our community. Mrs. Luper was tremendously loved, respected, and touched the lives of so many good people and people in our community for the good work that she and the young people of the Freedom Center were involved in. So we're excited about where we are now. Mr. Fleck will kind of share with you kind of where to from here, and that hopefully sometime when we celebrate the celebration of the Freedom Fiesta, I think it'll be the 61st or the 62nd since 1958 next year, of that historic confrontation here, just a couple of blocks in here, of where the Freedom Center that was all about opening up public accommodation so that all people would receive those services on a basis of equal treatment. So and we'll be extending an invitation to all of you guys to celebrate with us that opening. Mr. Fleck, please.
Thank you, Leonard. My name is Colin Fleck. I'm with Bacchus Payne Architecture. My address is 2228 Northwest 45th Street in Oklahoma City. And today, just wanted to present our concept for the restoration of this building. As some of you may know, this building over the years has taken on many forms, and so we felt it would be good to present this to you with our history of the building. The building doesn't have any original drawings. Historic photographs have been difficult to come by, but it's had many iterations over the years, and so we wanted to present what we've selected as the snapshot in time for this building, if you will. And so we've provided the history with photographs and historic events to you, and so you should have those there. I don't know if it's in this queue for this presentation or not.
The commission each has a copy at their seats, and I think this is the only image that's on the presentation screen, but they do have the timeline at their seats.
So you can look through that, and you can see from the beginning when the building was purchased by Ms. Luper that it was a white concrete block mobile gas station, essentially. And she utilized the building to organize, and then it was bombed and vandalized, and she subsequently began to build the building up and clad it with different things, and again, it had different iterations that you can see in that timeline. What we're presenting today, we feel, is the culmination of her work. Over time, the brown brick, although it's not original to the building, it was added in the 90s, and Ms. Luper passed away in 2011. And since then, the building had fallen into disrepair. Since then, because it was unsafe to the neighborhood and the community, the brick has been removed. The roof is falling in. The site is just in bad shape. And so and working with the Freedom Center board, they voted that this was the appropriate choice to restore it to this era. And so what we've shown here is going back with a brown brick to match the original, keeping the windows and the doors on the east side in the same place, keeping the original signage on the front there and restoring that sign, and then actually replacing there's a timeline of the history of African Americans in the United States, and you can see those small white checkered plaques there. Replacing those in a more permanent fashion with either a glazed tile that's engraved or a cast stone that's been engraved so that it has more permanence to it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to make it feel as though it's the original with some modern improvements to make it a little more permanent. We're also waterproofing the building and insulating the building so that it has modern accommodations. The HVAC and electrical plumbing systems will all be replaced on the inside. We're keeping the north and south elevations the same as well. We are infilling the gable with painted board and batten siding, which we feel is appropriate compared to what was there originally, which has since essentially rotted out. And then the major change is on the non-street facing side, which is the west elevation. We're actually taking the brown brick back there as well. Originally, it was a white concrete block that you could still see, but we'd like to make some improvements back there that will help bring some daylighting into the spaces on the interior. And so we're cutting a few windows, a few skylights on that backside, and a new door. And so that's all we have to present today. We wanted to just put that in front of you and get your feedback on it and make sure that we're in alignment with the expectations on a building that, again, has many different iterations, but the community and the group feel that this is the right way to go on our side.
Perfect. Thank you for that presentation. I'm thrilled that you guys are bringing this back to life, for a million different reasons, but for what it represents and what it stands for and all of that. So thank you guys for that. Any questions from our group?
Yeah, I'll second Taylor on that. And I remember 3 years ago when this came before us for a historic landmark designation, so it's exciting to see it moving forward. And it seems like you guys have a great approach here in maintaining what the building was, but making the improvements, insulating, waterproofing, to give it some permanence and make sure that it can, be there for a long time and serve its purpose. So the one thing that I heard was that the original building was CMU, and I know there's some discussion on possibly on that west elevation, maybe instead of taking the brick all the way around, even where there wasn't brick originally, maybe leaving some of that CMU or leaving that one back facade as CMU, kind of as a reference to what the building was. But that's really, just a comment I have. That's not really a complaint or just something to consider maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, I think overall, I'm excited to see this moving forward. So.
Great.
Okay, Katie, do we need to do anything on this, or do we just say thank you?
No, there's no action required on this. It's just a presentation. So if there's no other comments from the commission, then we really appreciate you guys' time today.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you very much.
Yes, very briefly. I want to acknowledge that I recall 3 years ago after the city council voted is that almost immediately after the council meeting is that one of the first person to approach me was Mrs. Fiddle, Katie, to not only congratulate us but also to offer the assistance of her office and her staff, and we have called upon them many times, and we do appreciate the council and the guidance and the technical assistance and support that you provided. Thank you so very much. And you probably know we really needed it, right? Okay,
Well,
thank you.
it has been our pleasure and an honor to get to help this building move forward. So it's wonderful to see it progressing and ready to move forward with getting the repairs done and getting it back into use. So very glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move to cases for individual consideration. I think we've got 13 on the list today, if I am, oh, no, 12, I'm sorry. Is that right, Katie?
So we have, there are 13 on the agenda. We are actually down to 11 because items for individual consideration, numbers 11 and 12, were continued to November. So those have been taken care of. But we'll start with number 1.
Okay. Item number 1, HPCA 20-000 through, nope.
Yep, 21-00040.
Yep, at 524 Northwest 16th Street.
Yes.
Excellent.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Garrett Moore for certificate of appropriateness to 2 construct garage elective. This is an application that the commission has seen a couple of times. The commission previously approved the demolition of a historic garage in this location. The applicant has been before the commission to discuss the new construction as well and has made numerous revisions based on the commission's feedback. They are out of continuances, so that's why you do have a recommendation for an approval or a denial in your staff report, because we have to do one or the other. They have verified that the structure as proposed meets the criteria in the municipal code for a 1.5-story garage. That was one of the things that was discussed previously. It involves the floor area of the second floor of the garage, and it involves the height of the wall from the floor to where it meets the roof. They are within the allowed square footage for new construction garage that the HP guidelines specify, and have made some changes to the design of the garage, including the proportions and the layout of the dormer to better address the overall form and the massing of garage. They've also added some trim detail to further address kind of proportions and massing of the front elevation of the structure.
Okay, perfect. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Garrett Moore. I'm here with my wife, Eden Moore.
Great.
Since it's been just a little bit of time since we last met, I want to just spend a few minutes reviewing the past revisions that were originally brought to you back in April. When we originally came to you guys, it was with a 2-story garage. When we went from our first rendering that was brought to you to our second, what ended up happening was we shortened the overall height over 3 feet. We added a hip roof on the front and a gable on the back end per your recommendation, and which made it a true 1.5-story structure. It is no longer a 2-story structure like Katie mentioned. We added fenestration and we lowered the ceiling in the garage. We brought that to you guys to the next meeting. Based on some recommendations that were made from you, we made the dormer smaller with 2 windows instead of 4. We made sure the roof comes down below the dormer to split up the first and second story. We centered the window on the south elevation facing our back neighbor and added another window for symmetry. We added a window on the east elevation going up the stairs. The pitch of the gable and dormer is now the same. We added corner boards. We added windows in the garage on west elevation facing our neighbor's fence for fenestration, and we labeled that the ceiling was 9 feet for clarification. Couple other notes were that the floor plan where the 3-foot wall meets the roof line was now labeled. That was not labeled in the original rendering. And we made the footprint of the garage a little bit smaller. Our last meeting was what has happened since. We met with our architect and staff to discuss the building code in reference to some of the windows and decisions for design. In that meeting, we were advised to add a 10-inch piece of trim to break up the siding between the first floor and the second floor, kind of replicating what you see there on that picture. Other than that, staff asked to measure the height of surrounding garages. I think it's worth noting that our abutting garage that you can kind of barely see on the left-hand side is 22 feet 4 inches. It is 1.5 stories, and we are proposing a 20-foot 2-inch garage, which really is only a 2-foot and 10-inch difference from what you are seeing right there. So with that, I'll close with this. We understand the need to make changes from our original renderings. However, we're on our, as Katie mentioned, our third and final rendering. We've lost the last 3 months all to adding a piece of trim and clarifying surrounding heights of garages. So after making extensive changes over the last 6, really 7 months, both recommended by both you guys and the staff, we're coming to you today to ask for permission for this building.
Perfect. Questions from commissioners for the applicant?
No, I'll just say, I remember seeing this one, and it does seem to me that you've made, significant changes to kind of address some of the proportion and height concerns, and I know that staff is recommending, well, both approval and denial, but I personally, I think you've made the necessary changes. So, personally, I'm okay with approving this.
I think that's where I'm at too. It seems pretty reasonable to me. I'm usually quite the stickler on garage size, and this doesn't feel like the garage mahal to me. So I think that you all have made accommodations, and it feels like it's within size and the scope compared to other surrounding garages, although it's not exactly a replica of what was there previously. I still feel pretty comfortable with the direction.
Can I make a motion?
Do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Yes, you may make a motion.
Thank you. I move to approve HPCA 2100040, item 2, with the conditions as noted in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
And I'll just note, I don't think there are any conditions listed in the staff report, but you may have just meant to reference the findings. Oh, there is a condition. The condition was just that documentation of any revisions as directed by the commission be submitted to staff, and there are none, so there's your conditions.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank
I appreciate it.
Okay, that motion carries by unanimous vote. Moving on to item number 2, HPCA 2100064 at 617 Northwest 25th Street.
This is located in Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks, Jolly Bird Home Design, LLC, for Patrick Gaines, Gaines Properties, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish existing steps and landing, elective, 2, construct steps, elective, 3, construct deck, elective, and 4, replace door, elective. This is kind of an unusual property in that it's an accessory dwelling structure at the rear of the property that appears to have always been dwellings, not a converted garage. And the applicants propose to replace the stair and landing that you can see there at the top of the driveway and construct a larger landing and deck that goes to the side across the front of the accessory structure. They've also proposed to replace a door at the second floor. Staff has recommended approval of that. Staff's main concern with the stair and the landing is that that appears to be a historic feature and it is visible from the street. A possible recommendation from staff would be that that stair and landing be reconstructed more in keeping with the existing condition, and perhaps a separate deck or a different configuration that creates a deck across the front where it's not visible from the street would kind of solve that issue. But typically if we see a deck of that sort on the rear of a house where it's not visible from the street, we've always recommended approval for those, even when it's a more modern feature. The main concern here was that this portion is visible from the street looking up the driveway to the rear of the property.
Do we have any questions from commissioners on this particular project for the applicant? And is there anything else in regards to the staff's notes in the report that you all wish to comment on, or anything to that effect?
No, I just, Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate you letting me be here. I'm Patrick Gaines. I am the homeowner. Counselor, good to see you again. This back property, we've done a lot of improvements on it and fixed the windows and redid all of them to try to clean the property up. We're still trying to get more access to livable space on it. We thought that a porch out in front would help provide that. The concerns about those steps being historic, they've been added on in several different time periods. So if they're claiming to be, staff's claiming to be historic, I would be curious on which time frame that historic time came in, because that was added on, then the steps were added on. It was redone again to add the railing on. And part of the problem is in doing that over all that time, there's really not any integrity left to the porch. It's in pretty bad shape and has come apart. Those steps were put on prior to me coming in because the steps were so bad you couldn't use them safely. I would like to take the wooden porch that's proposed all the way over to there, because if I have to tear that porch down and rebuild it the way it is, and then add the wood porch on the other side, that it wouldn't be seamless. It would be two different types of structures as far as architecturally. And if I rebuild the entire porch, one of the things I've always thought on historic preservation is if you can get it to retain its original historic factors, then that's appropriate. If I have to take that down brick by brick and redo it with new mortar and new bricks, then it's lost all of its historic preference, and it wouldn't do any good to tear it apart and rebuild it because there's no longer anything historic about it. Currently, the way it is, I cannot continue to use it as is. I mean, I would prefer not to. I think there's some safety issues with it. So that's why we're asking for a request to just start over and build the porch all the way across the front. And I'd be happy to answer any questions any commissioners may have.
Any questions on this project?
So the steps that come down from upstairs, those will remain as, you're not going to redo those. It'll just be integrated into the new proposed deck. Is that right?
The stairs on the right?
Yes.
Correct.
From the second story?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure I really see an issue with your proposal. I mean, I know that maybe if you kept the stairs the way they were and you put the deck on the side, that could be an option, but it doesn't leave a whole lot of room to step down off the sides of the steps to go down to the deck, and to me it is far enough back on the property, and maintaining the side steps the way you have it. And I do recognize it's a safety concern, especially with those kind of temporary stairs built over the original stairs.
Right.
So,
and we can leave that step on the steps on the right. You know, we can incorporate that last step in if that helps any, just for the continuation of flow of the steps, just to transition into the new deck, if that's something the commission would consider it to help out.
Well, actually, what is the construction of the new deck? Is it a wood deck, just like a wood?
It's going to be a wood deck, and it's going to have cable railing so that it doesn't impede the property as much. I thought if we had a cable railing, you'd be able to see more of the structure instead of having a wood railing.
Because you're not really touching the building in that regard, just the steps in front and then adding the porch or the deck. So
correct.
I mean,
and you don't see the majority of the property from the street.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure I have a huge issue with your proposal, especially since it's not like really an alteration to the existing garage. It's more of an addition to the front, and it's in the back. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's where I get too, is it's not super, I mean, it's visible from the street, but it's not super visible from the street. It's to the garage or the flat, if you will, and safety concern wise, I can certainly see why we would want to replace those. So I think I can get there as well.
Every time. Is the accessory dwelling original to that property? I mean, do we know when that was built, and is that original? Has there been any that we know of?
I think it was original to the property, at least to the 1930. 10 years difference. The house was built in 1920. The property was 1930 in the back, but to my knowledge, it was originally built as a two-story. There was no garage in it. Okay. So I think the Sanborn map shows that as well.
And is that a guest house? I'm assuming
there's two apartments back there at Burgess levels, and to add for the security concerns we have for the steps, I will tell you that my 19-year-old twins live there right now. So security is very important to me for them to make sure that they have a secure approach to get to the establishment.
I think I just have a concern that it's the original, there's been no alterations to it. It was built in the 1930s, and that's how it was intended to be. And I do feel like we get into this when we start making revisions. We know what was there, we know what it looks like. I'm not saying I don't like it, I'm just saying that on the guidelines, it's a historic structure, and we know what was there, we know how that porch was.
I don't know if the steps, the concrete steps that are under there, I don't know at what point those were added or what was there previous. You can tell it was not an original incorporation into the porch. I don't believe, obviously, the wood steps are not. But they had like brick sides and concrete interior for the steps, which, I mean,
right.
From the properties I bought, that's not original from what
I think what I'm just looking at is at no point, unless there's photo evidence, was there a deck that spanned the entire front of the accessory dwelling. It was probably always just a little landing. So if we want to keep it historically accurate, then, you know.
Well, and I think the porch that we're building, that there'll be a differential enough between the porch and the property that it'll show it's, I'm not trying to replicate an original
Right.
porch that was there. The property's small, it needs a little bit more footprint, one way or another.
The one item that maybe was missed earlier that I didn't bring up, looks like item number 4, replacing the upstairs doors. Are you comfortable going with wood doors as opposed to some other material? I think that was noted in the report. Alternative.
Do we have a fire risk?
Yeah.
The issue with that door and replacing it is that is an old wooden door. It does have the mutton latch on it. We have tried to rebuild that door numerous times. My contractors have tried to rebuild it. It has some issues, honestly, staying latched. Like I said, my daughter does live up there. It's been a big concern to her. And I put in some interior locks for her, but the door itself, it has fallen apart many, many times. I've rebuilt it many, many times. The professionals rebuilt it many, many times. And it just really lacks any type of integrity to be able to keep. So we wanted to put a new door in that would be more secure. We did want just this light on the top just for light. As far as, what was the original material for it? Yeah, it's a wood-clad door.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it could be a new door, it would just have to be a wood door, correct?
So the guidelines require that the primary entrance door be wood, and, you know, technically this is the primary entrance to that dwelling. This is an accessory building in a rear yard, typically on garages, other accessory structures like that. The guidelines do allow for alternate materials for doors. Staff did ultimately, I've got a recommendation for approval for the door with the alternate material, given the minimal visibility of that location, and then it's an accessory structure.
Okay. It's also on the side, so anything you can't see from the front, you can't see that door.
With it being an accessory structure, does that change the guidelines or allow for modification of the, you know, to add the deck and some of the other things on that we're discussing in the back?
So the guidelines for accessory structures are really written for garages and sheds and that sort of thing, and don't really adequately address adding a deck, that sort of thing, because we just don't have that many accessory dwelling units like this that are historic, that are in a backyard. We reference the guidelines that we use for when people are adding a deck on the rear of a structure, you know, a primary structure, landscape features and elements, that sort of thing. And the main thing just came down to visibility, that we tend to have a lot of flexibility with introducing more modern materials when it's something that's not visible from the right-of-way. When it's something that can be seen from the right-of-way, we tend to be more supportive of something that is retaining the historic condition if it's known, or at least is consistent with what would have been the historic condition if we don't have adequate documentation of what that was. Again, this is an accessory building, it's in the backyard. You know, it's not the same thing as a front porch on the front of a primary dwelling. But staff's main concern was that there was that portion that does appear to be fairly visible from the right-of-way. And then it's a pretty modern design for the proposed porch and deck.
That was going to be my next question, is are we comfortable with the materials and the design of the deck on the front porch using that cable barrier as opposed to wood and things of that nature? Or do we have any opinion on that?
And that's in your attachments in PrimeGov, and it's page 13 of 21 of the attachments. If you, we don't have those in the PowerPoint itself, but you do have it in PrimeGov.
I didn't see anything. There was a prohibition against that material. Like I said, I was trying to use that to minimize the impact of the porch itself, and especially the visual for the property.
Do we think the current railing is historic? I mean, it doesn't look historic to me. So I mean, I appreciate the idea of trying to minimize the impact of that from the view and keeping it as thin and insignificant as possible. So.
I love that argument, by the way. I mean, it's a great argument.
Yeah, that's Lowe's finest right there.
I'm pretty comfortable with it. I know staff's recommended continuation on items 1, 2, and 3, and approval on items 4. I guess I'm pretty comfortable with the design and the direction.
Same.
Okay. Do we have a motion? Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'm sorry. I need to ask, is any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Sorry, Klaus.
I'll make sure I get these items right. So I will make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00064, items 1, 2, and 3 with the specific findings as listed in the staff report. Let's see. With the specific findings that the existing steps would have to be replaced anyway, and that the proposed renovations would be far back in the property and would not create a significant visual impact. And then approve items 4, replace upstairs door as noted in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, second by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very
much. Enjoy your project.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the church on 25th that was mentioned, we actually live on that block, and I met with Ms. Jones and with him, and we're going to meet with them on Monday as well, because we obviously have a concern with that project too, that we would like to provide our input. But
good. Well, I'm glad that the neighborhood and the applicant are meeting together to discuss. I think that's positive.
We appreciate your help. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item number 3, HPCA 21-00099 at 804 Northwest 17th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Phil Fitzgerald for Gary Jones for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish 1-story garage, elective, 2, construct 2-story garage with apartment, elective, 3, enclose patio to create an addition, elective, 4, remove gravel and install concrete for driveway and parking, elective, 5, replace fencing, elective, and 6, install mechanical equipment, elective. So those last several items are all kind of contingent upon the garage demolition and new construction being approved. Staff did recommend approval of the proposed demolition of the garage based on the condition, as documented by the applicant. Staff also recommended approval of enclosing the rear patio as an addition based on the proposal and based on the guidelines. The applicant has, since we last met, provided clarification that the existing garage footprint is 541 square feet. So the proposed garage is consistent with the existing footprint of the previous garage, or the garage that's still standing there to be replaced. The applicant has indicated that the second floor of the garage would be no more than 2/3 of the footprint of the garage, which is one of the criteria for a 1.5-story garage, and that it will be an office and not a dwelling. That was one of the other concerns that staff had raised, that this zoning district does not allow a second dwelling unit. I believe we're not clear at this point on whether the wall height was at or below the 3 feet that is required to be a 1/2 story to meet that definition. And we also wanted to point out that the applicant has provided 2 options for cladding of the garage, a fiber cement siding option and a stucco option, to kind of put both of those forward to the commission. So if this was approved, then the commission would need to specify a cladding material. There are some other construction materials that staff would want to work with the applicant to make sure we have all of those details correct. Staff does have a recommendation of continuance just based on some of those remaining concerns about the height, the size, the wall height for that 1/2 story, and whether those have all been addressed.
Okay. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Phil Fitzgerald, 3900 North Santa Fe.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to be here today and make this presentation. We worked with staff for, I think, maybe over 1.5 years trying to get this thing going in the right direction. The first project was an apartment. We've since been understood that that won't happen, and so we went to the 1.5 story. We have changed the sidewall to a 3-foot sidewall instead of a 4 to make sure it's a 1.5 story. We worked with staff to agree with the materials, and so we're okay with either with a smooth cementitious siding or the stucco, whichever is appropriate by staff. We had trouble getting a sample of the garage door because of problems with getting materials today for the staff, and we'll work with staff on the garage door finishes. And we'll work with the staff also on the detail of the railings, that they're vertical railings and simplistic in design. And so we're here to ask for your permission and approval and see if you have any questions.
Okay. Just have to note that on item 3, it does say remove grave and install paving. I'm assuming that's supposed to be gravel. There's not a grave on the property, but item 1, demolishing the garage looks pretty straightforward. Staff's noted that it's in very poor condition and impractical to rehab. I'm pretty comfortable with that. Let's see. And continuing to get more information on materials and things of that nature is probably necessary, but what questions do we have from my fellow commission members?
Is a primary structure on the house like a siding?
Stucco.
Yeah.
Stucco.
Oh, it is stucco?
Yes.
The primary houses? Okay. Yeah, I was going to almost recommend that I would probably personally prefer the siding over the stucco combination, but are there any images of the existing house? Oh, there we go, okay.
So you can see stucco pretty much around the entire building.
Okay.
The only siding was the clapboard garage.
Mm. So the original garage was a clapboard garage? I guess in that case, I'm not really sure. I feel strongly. I think it could go either way. Either you keep it the clapboard like the original garage, or it kind of matches the house a little bit. It's still secondary.
Yeah, we felt perhaps we're not indifferent, but I think we originally thought the stucco would be appropriate. But I think maybe that might be an issue that we might have further discussion with staff. But I don't think we're have a problem either way.
Yeah. I think conceptually, and it sounds like you've made some alterations to it. It's kind of similar to a previous garage that we talked about. You've hit that 1.5 story requirement. I think the materials are, I don't really have an issue with the materials, and anything that we need to clarify that maybe you didn't get samples from or that you had some issues with, I think that's something that can be clarified probably. I know that just in construction in general, materials are really difficult to get right now, and lead times are like 6 weeks for basic things. So really to me, I think that seems pretty straightforward. But
Any other questions for commissioners of the applicant? Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Do we have a motion?
I'll start with the demolition because that'll be separate. So let me see which one that was. What item? Okay, so that's 2.
Item 1, demolish the garage. Well,
Oh, item 3. Oh, approve
Yes.
item 1, demolish garage. Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve item 1 of HPCA 21-00112 to demolish.
00999, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're on to that one, yeah. 00099.
Yep, there you go.
To demolish the existing garage based on the current condition.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, second by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Okay, demolition of the garage was unanimously passed. How about items number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
Yep, and I apologize. Sometimes it's a little confusing on the staff report because you'll have a number and then it's approve item 3. But anyway, so give me 1 second here. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve items.
I think item 3 was, well,
2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And let me make sure I get these conditions right because we have some conditions on materials. Katie, do you have specific material concerns? I think we talked about the materials. Did any, actually, before I make this motion, did any other commissioners have any strong concerns about stucco versus siding? Okay.
I'm comfortable with whatever the applicant wants to do.
Pardon me, I talked to the owner, he said he would like to use stucco if it's okay with you. We already have stucco, it'd be easier to maintain if we've got the one material on there.
Okay. And then staff, I just want to make sure as far as materials are concerned. So if we clarify the siding material, was a garage door that we had a question on? I'm trying to find if
I
there's
think
something else.
we could, so it's garage door, I think there were some questions about window pattern or documentation of the specific window product to be used. It does note that fiberglass doors are generally approved only where not visible from the public right-of-way. And I believe this one is, it's at a corner, so the doors are potentially visible. And that there is a stairway visible from the right-of-way that may not be consistent with the historic character of the garage, or of garages typical to the area. Oh, and then light fixtures consistent with the character of the property and the structure. So it may be something that just a general condition that construction materials consistent with the guidelines be submitted to staff for review prior to release of the certificate of appropriateness would cover all of those.
Okay, would that be acceptable to you?
Work with staff on that appropriateness? Yeah, okay.
Okay, then I will make a recommendation to approve HPCA 21-00112. I'm sorry, 00099, items 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, with the specific findings as listed in the staff report, and the condition that the applicant submit additional documentation on the materials consistent with the guidelines.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in prime gov.
Does that motion include the applicant's choice of stucco?
Correct. I think,
Yes,
I think either one is fine, but yeah. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion carries by unanimous decision. Moving on to Klaus's favorite, HPCA 21-00112 at 904 Northwest 36th Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, and it's actually 36 Terrace,
Oh,
just to
36 Terrace.
be accurate. Consideration and possible action on application by Cassandra Duncan Azadi for Kavan Azadi, Lions Light Corporation, for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install fence, elective, 2, replace window units with mini splits, elective, and 3, install outdoor light fixtures, elective. This is another kind of unusual property for HP. It's a larger apartment building. We don't see as many of those. They are proposing several items related to the property. Most notably is replacing a number of window units with mini splits. There's no way to do that without some of the condenser units being located so that they are visible from a public right-of-way. But in talking with the applicant, reviewing the project, staff agreed that that was the best possible solution for the overall preservation and kind of longevity and health of the structure, and they've worked very hard to locate them and to make them have as minimal of an impact on the structure as possible. Similarly, they've proposed fencing that doesn't meet various guidelines as far as transparency and setback. This is an unusual site in the way that it's located next to a parking lot and then a park, a public park, to the east of the property, and then it is set significantly forward of the properties down the block to the east from it. So locating the fence in a way that it meets the guidelines makes that fence not very functional for securing various entrances to the building, for securing parking locations. So staff has recommended approval of all of these items with unique circumstances addressing those various criteria that could not or were not met by the proposal.
Does the alteration to a mini split, does that does that go in through the window, or does that go in through the brick, or does that cause any damage to the?
It will go in through a very small masonry opening, and we have talked with the applicant about how that's done. I think that is detailed in their application to be done so that it will only affect one single brick.
Okay.
And not go further into the masonry and the mortar. Angela, correct me if I'm remembering that inaccurately, but I think they were going to be able to do it just within one brick. They do have actually extra brick that matches the structure if they needed to do repairs. So it seemed like a pretty minimal impact and much less invasive than trying to put in central heat and air in a structure like this, and certainly less visual impact than window units sticking out of every apartment.
That's kind of my direction on it, is that from a historic preservation and look perspective, it's going to look significantly better not having window units stuck in all these windows, and the mini splits seem to make sense. I'm comfortable with all of the items as noted in the report. I can support an approval.
Yeah, it seems like a
Did
no-brainer to
we
me.
ask if the applicant's present? Is the applicant present on this? Any citizens that wish to be heard?
They have not arrived. If there are questions regarding the project that staff cannot answer for you, either the surgeon or the surgeon's nurse will be here at approximately 3:30 or 4 o'clock if you'd like to move them to the end.
How do we feel about an approval on this? Are we?
I think we could make a motion.
Let's get a motion.
Okay, I can do it. I move approval for HPCA 2100112, items 1, 2, and 3. Do I need to add with unique circumstances?
Yes.
Okay.
You can just say with
Unique
findings and unique
circumstances, yeah.
circumstances in the staff report.
With the specific findings as noted in the staff report, right? Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Do we have a second?
And I can second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. Excuse me. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the surgeon and the surgeon's nurse will be thrilled. Moving on to item number, I think, 5, HPCA 2100113 at 710 Northwest 20th Street.
This is located in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Melissa Graham for Cap Crawford for certificate of appropriateness to 1, close faux doors and windows required, 2, construct trellis required, and 3, paint brick, mortar, and concrete sills required. So that required indicates that this work was done, has already been completed, and they've received a notice of violation for that work. Apparently, the windows had been closed off from the interior by a previous owner, and the new owner indicated on the application came in and installed siding over those windows. The trellis or fence wall has been installed forward of the property, and then obviously the masonry on the structure has all been painted. Staff did recommend a continuance just to allow the applicant the opportunity to potentially propose revisions to the work that doesn't meet the standards and guidelines, or to propose potential methods for attempting to remove the paint from the masonry, which is typically what we've done when masonry has, previously unpainted masonry has been painted over. But staff did not see any elements of the proposed work that met the guidelines and standards.
Is the applicant present? Any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Okay, to me, this is one that we likely would have just denied from the beginning based off of the guidelines as noted in the report. So I guess that's where I would be leaning towards, is a denial on all. Nothing about it seems appropriate to me. I hate to be harsh, but in the spirit of efficiency, that seems to make sense. So is it
I just want to make sure the applicant's not here. Did they make any indication that they wanted to be here? Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I just want anybody to have the opportunity. Is this the first time it's come before us?
This is the first time it's been before the commission, although it was on previous agendas that then subsequently were canceled due to lack of quorum. I don't think that we've heard anything from the applicant since they initially applied, even after talking through what the issues and concerns were with the work that had been done. So if it is denied, we would notify code enforcement that they no longer have an active application for a CA, so code enforcement would pick back up. They kind of put these on pause when they're working toward getting approval from the commission. Alternatively, we often will continue an item one time to allow an applicant to respond or to attend the meeting. I think it's entirely up to the commission, given that we haven't heard from this applicant at all about this case, if it's worth continuing it for another month or just denying it, and they can start the process over again, or they can just work through the citation with code enforcement.
But they were on the previous agendas that we didn't have quorum.
Right.
And we've not heard from them.
No.
Okay.
We have too much to do to push this down the road. I think we've got to deny it with prejudice. Or do you deny with prejudice, or do we just deny? Or how does that, what's the preferred?
So denial with prejudice would mean that they could not reapply for the same thing for a year unless they had new information to submit. Denial without prejudice would mean that they could turn around tomorrow and submit this exact same application again.
I would deny it again the second time too. So I guess that's why I would deny it with prejudice.
Mm-hmm. So can I make that motion then? Are we at that point?
Yes, I think so.
So I'm going to motion to deny case HPCA 2100113, items 1, 2, and 3. And I'm sorry, what am I doing with prejudice?
Yep.
All right.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, second by Commissioner Ryman Phillip. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. That is unanimously passed, denied with prejudice. Okay, moving on to item number 6, HPCA 2100119 at 424 Northwest 30th Street.
This is in Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Jeff Blake, Gumerson Blake Design Build for Tyler Bolton for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct garage with variance required for height and side and rear yard setbacks, elective, and 2, replace driveway elective, and 3, construct fence and gate elective. So you'll remember that this is the property that was before the commission for an SPUD to allow for a garage with garage apartment of a specified height and a specified footprint. That did go on to Planning Commission and was just recently approved by City Council. So they're back before you now with a certificate of appropriateness for a garage that meets those specifications. As we noted when we reviewed the SPUD, there was historically a very large accessory building at this property that was 2 stories. There are some 2-story garages and accessory buildings at surrounding properties as well. Staff has recommended approval with just a couple of conditions. One is that it's a condition, it's really kind of a note that they will have to go for an administrative amendment to the SPUD to address a side yard setback that should have been corrected through the SPUD process but wasn't caught until after the council hearing. And that's going from a 5-foot setback to a 2-foot setback, which appears to be consistent with the historic development of the property. The other condition was just to make sure that we get final drawings where the various metal components are labeled as being painted, a painted finish, and not a unpainted finish, which the applicant has agreed to. So.
Okay.
Katie, you said everything I was about to say, so
moving it
I don't
along.
have a lot to add. Good summary. I'm Jeff.
Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. Any questions from commissioners?
No, staff is recommending approval, and it seems pretty straightforward to me, so.
I agree. Any citizens that wish to be heard on this project? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 21-00119, items 1 through 3 with the specific findings, unique circumstances, and conditions as noted in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillips, second by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to item number 7, HPCA 21-00120 at 614 Northwest 26th Street.
This is located in Paseo, actually. I'm afraid it says Edgemere Park in your agenda. Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks, Jolly Bird Home Design, LLC, for David Barthel for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct 2-story garage at 506 square feet, elective. 2, flip proposed floor plan of dwelling previously approved, elective. 3, install paving, elective. 4, remove fence, elective. And 5, install fence between dwelling and garage, elective. So this is a dwelling that was previously approved by the commission in the last several months, and the applicant is proposing to basically flip it to be a mirror image of what was approved before. So the porch will be on the left instead of the right, et cetera. I don't believe there are any other changes to the primary dwelling itself, the footprint, the design, the materials. The applicant had previously proposed a garage as well, and either withdrew that or it was ultimately denied. I don't recall at this point, but they've proposed to construct a 2-story garage, again, as part of this application. It's slightly over the 450 square foot guideline for construction of new garages. It is proposed at 2 stories. There are some 2-story accessory structures, including, I think, the one that we just reviewed at Mr. Gaines' property, abutting or adjacent to this property. One of the things that staff noted in particular is that they've proposed a shared driveway with the property to the west that is considerably wider than most of our historic shared driveways. Usually those are the width of a typical single driveway, and then they fan out to perhaps 2 separate garages on the neighboring properties. This does add a significant kind of uninterrupted stretch of concrete from the driveway all the way back into the rear yard of the property. And then another item that's not typical for most of the cases that the commission sees is the proposed installation of fencing between the primary dwelling and the garage itself. That's in a backyard. It's not visible from the public right-of-way per se. It's just not a typical condition that we see. So staff did recommend continuance due to a number of those different concerns that that I've summarized and that are listed in the staff report. I think the applicant's prepared to address some of those issues.
Awesome. Okay, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Fallon Brooks, 1605 North Classen Boulevard.
Excellent. What questions do we have from commissioners? What new information do you want to share with us?
We provided in this application a lot more examples on the square footage because we are a little bit over by 50 square feet, I think. So we provided a bunch of examples kind of showing that that's fairly typical for the area that we're in. Abutting properties have some larger footprints on their garages and accessory structures. The flipping the house and widening the driveway to make it shared was really so that we could prevent from having to eliminate the existing. So the existing driveway for the next door neighbor is over the property line by a couple of feet. And if we were to go and build and do all that, we would end up kind of taking a couple feet away from them and making that driveway inaccessible. We're proposing it to be wider because it's not just a single family dwelling. It's, I think there's 4 units in that building. So there's quite a bit of traffic coming in and out of that driveway, and we would be adding to it. So that's why we proposed the widening it a little bit. There is a driveway directly across the street that is similar in width, so it's not completely unheard of in the neighborhood. As far as the fence between the dwelling and the garage, because the garage is open to that driveway that's being shared, it just allows for pets to be kept in and not, you know, because we're pretty open there. So it's a security issue really for animals.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple other things to note. Just, you know, the original plan was, I mean, as you can see, there's already an entryway for a driveway there on the east side of the property, and that was the original plan I'd submitted. But because like she was saying, with everything, you know, we talked to the people next door, the owners of that building, and they actually sold me the lot. So I was, you know, really wanting to work with them on that, you know, because it's like, I don't want to make this really hard for your tenants to not be able to use your driveway because it would make their driveway unusable. And by marrying my driveway with theirs, which wasn't my original plan, but a good compromise for everybody, we're actually going to decrease the total concrete footprint on the property compared to what was originally approved. So there'll be more grass, there'll be more room for gardening, things like that on the property as well. And additionally, I know Fallon already mentioned it, but directly across the street, the driveways there are already married. So it's not going to be, you know, too far out of the scope of the range there. Also, I assume everyone got a chance to at least kind of review the application, but there's 3 abutting structures, 2 of which are garages that are all and over that 450 square foot footprint. And there's a lot of good reasons that I included in that packet. I hope everyone read to basically make that happen. All right, thank you.
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Oh yes, my name is David Barthel. I'd be the homeowner.
Okay.
And do you want my current or this address?
Whichever you prefer.
Current?
Sure.
1704 Northwest 20th Street.
Okay, thank you.
And I misspoke previously. Staff did recommend approval for the fencing for flipping the plan of the proposed dwelling with conditions that we actually still have the CA for the previously approved dwelling on our desks, waiting for some additional documentation from the applicant. So just making sure we get all of those material specifications, but recommended approval for that with conditions and approval for the.
I believe we did submit those with this application separately.
Okay, I think you're right. I think we have, we did get additional materials from you guys. And then approving construction of the 2-story garage, and I believe the related paving with recommended conditions, just kind of allowing the commission the opportunity to address any design considerations within the conditions that you all may see with the size or with the amount of paving proposed. So I'm sorry, I inaccurately summarized our, our summary.
Let's see. So I don't know that I have any major concerns of maybe just getting soft today, but I think the shared driveway is sort of a creative solution to the challenge that you guys are facing. I think there's enough unique circumstances with the fourplex that you guys are going to be sharing that with for me to say, yeah, I can get on board with the wider driveway. I think from the size of the garage perspective, I think you guys have worked really hard to get this, not to be a massive structure, and so I think I can be supportive of the design and the direction. Any other comments, questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of keeping the driveways as narrow as possible to eliminate that curb cut. My question is, it looks like it's 12 foot on one side maybe and 6.5 on the other, so about, 18.5. So is that enough to have two cars passing at the same time? It's pretty tight, right?
Yeah, that was the idea, is in an emergency situation, if somebody's swinging in, then they, can kind of get over and have enough room.
As long as it's a small car and not a dually truck, which almost everybody seems to drive in Oklahoma. I mean, I do appreciate the creative solution and understand that it's less pavement than what would have been existing if they were separate. I would still prefer to see that driveway cut a little bit narrow and see additional green space on the side, especially looking at the adjacent property and how much is paved on their property. So that would be my one comment.
I totally understand that. I live next to an apartment complex right now, and it's just been my experience that if you give them an opportunity to do something, at some point, I imagine someone will park there and basically make it to where I either can't get out of my garage or in my garage. Yeah. And that's why we tried to make it as narrow as possible, but to where I could still squeeze out if I absolutely had to. Without having to call a tow truck or something, or start banging on doors. And that was the logic for that, but I totally understand where you're coming from. And one of the things that I plan on doing, and I believe it's in the drawings, is I do plan on putting like a little bit of landscaping there on the west side of the house abutting to that driveway, because we're picking up some extra space, whereas before the whole width of the driveway made it, because there was more driveway width on the whole property. Now that there's less driveway width, but the house is still the same width, there's going to be room for gardening on both sides and landscaping.
I would actually think maybe it would be the opposite. If you make it wide enough, you almost allow an opportunity for a car to think it can temporarily park there with the assumption that the car can squeeze by. If you don't, then it's clear. Like if you park here and you're blocking access for everybody. So I would actually think it would be the opposite. Like you may give somebody the excuse to they can squeeze by possibly, until it's a larger vehicle and not, a little Volkswagen. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. If it's almost wide enough to where you could pass one another, but it would be tight and it's right up against the building. So it's almost like, you get that false security, and then you get stuck in the middle when two cars are. And I feel like I've seen a lot. I live in Jefferson Park, and I see a lot of these kind of eighplexes, fourplexes that have the parking in back, very similar configuration. And their drives a lot of the time are kind of like a one-way drive, and people make it work. So I'm not sure. I really agree with Commissioner Poore about the about the width and the curb cut. You said there's a drive directly across the street. That is.
And I believe it was included in the packet as an example.
Maybe it is. I'm not.
I don't know if it's in these photos.
A lot of pages to this. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I wonder what that curb cut is, though. That curb cut even looks new. What those drives are. I mean, I don't hate that. I think it's a creative approach, and I think it makes sense what you're doing. I almost wonder if you narrowed it by, if it was like a 15-foot driveway or something, to where it's clear that's one way, but you've got enough room on either side. You're not worried about hitting a house, or you can kind of maneuver around easier. and you reduce the paving even more on the site, or you have an opportunity to do some additional landscaping or something, and the circulation's clear, like Commission, Kaz was saying about the, that kind of false security about passing someone. So that would be, I kind of agree with that comment. That'd be my.
I'll just note that it is pretty typical for us to see landscaping, kind of a landscaping buffer between a driveway and the dwelling that usually we have people apply quite regularly to widen their driveway all the way up to where it abuts the wall of the dwelling, and we frequently tell them that no, that's not appropriate. So I think even if it's just a minimal reduction of the driveway, adding a little bit of landscaping in makes that read less like a commercial, approach to a parking lot and more like a residential driveway.
Would 16 feet be appropriate, a little more appropriate?
I would argue that that doesn't really leave an adequate space for a landscaping strip that is likely to be successful, because it's surrounded by concrete and, facade. So, I think at least like 4 feet or something would be nice.
Sorry, I'm doing math.
I know, it's like 18.
Let me see what the overall width was and how much room we
Maybe
have.
3.5-foot landscape strip if you went down to a 15-foot drive, I think. Is that right? Am I doing that math right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That seems
I mean,
like,
I don't want to like split hairs on this, but I would like looking at the elevation. I mean, it would kind of be nice to see that landscaping strip because it does look like more of a commercial parking solution. And again, I think that just narrows the curb cut, it makes it more pedestrian friendly, and just adds additional green space on the site. So that's my one hang up.
I just want to make sure, are we talking about, because as it currently exists, as I'm understanding the rendering, you're talking about one driveway is going to just pave right up to the next driveway, right?
Yes.
Just a portion.
And what
Essentially just be widening the
what you're
existing
saying
apron.
is to break that apart with, okay.
Just narrow the width of the whole driveway so that they would be adding on to, so that it's.
So where's the landscaping going?
The proposed site plan that was in the packet shows paving basically from structure to structure.
Yeah.
And I gather that you're asking that we provide a strip of landscaping between the building and the driveway, the proposed
Between your building, yeah.
Which, yeah, we're fine with.
I get it.
If we could make it 2.5 feet instead of 3.5, I think a 16-foot driveway would be pretty typical typical in other areas, I suppose.
But what do you get out of the extras? Because really, you still can't fit 2 cars. You're really actually causing yourself additional materials by having to pour that concrete. It would be a cost savings to narrow it down.
and eliminate the confusion of it looking like a two-way.
Like on whether or not you can park there? Is that what, I just want to make sure I'm told, yeah, because I get that. Because I also think, don't you think the market would kind of help work itself out too? If it was a narrow driveway and you did drive that dually, you might think, this might not be the property for me. So I get that, okay. I appreciate that.
You got the two houses too, so it's like if it looks like it's wide enough, and then someone's leaving, someone's entering, and then you get to the middle, and you're like, oh crap, we don't fit. But I think, what you see in some of these, if you're gonna pull in, you see someone pulling out, you just wait a second, they pull out, and then you pull in.
Yeah.
It works itself out.
Yeah. And too wide, you're right. Somebody will, or they won't get all the way over, and then you're just stuck. I get it. Yeah.
Might as well make it a little bit narrower, have a nice landscape strip, and they can save some materials, and it's clear that it's one way, or I don't know.
While the applicant is discussing, do we have any citizens that wish to be heard on this project? Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Also want to be mindful of time. I know we do have one commissioner that needs to head out at 4:45, and I want to make sure we have quorum for the rest of the meeting too. So let's go ahead and move this along and figure out where we're at.
Sorry, we were having a little discussion.
That's all right.
An alternative proposal, I suppose, would be to leave the existing apron in the width that it is. And then, I'm so sorry, widen the driveway out as it gets a little further back, which would allow a landscape buffer, but would also allow a spot that is clear that this belongs on this side and this one's on this side, which I think would allow someone to kind of pull away. So we could still have that full width that we're requesting, but have a little landscape buffer to make it not be so much concrete.
Yeah, and I just,
Sorry.
yeah. So like, let's say I had some friends over. Sure, you can park on the street, right? But then, the neighbors get mad about people parking on the street. And I'm gonna be like the only driveway in the area where I can't have people park on my driveway. You see what I mean? And I'm building a 3,600 square foot house. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have a little bit wider, so that if I did have some friends over for a game night or something, they could squeeze up if they needed to, on my property without being somewhere else. And that's essentially, it would be like once a week, once every 2 weeks type thing. It's not gonna be like I'm gonna have people parking on my driveway all the time. But by not having the width there, it's a big old house to not be able to have guests over, essentially, and have parking for them.
I think that's a very creative argument, one that I would probably try and make as well. I just don't know that that's necessarily a unique circumstance that we would use to make a decision on. I've lived in a 3,300 square foot house with a very, very narrow driveway, and unfortunately, you just tell your friends to park in the street. I struggle on that one. But it sounds like we were close to a compromise here. Previously, Cassie or Commissioner Poore, did you?
Landscape buffer, like we talked, like it said. Sorry.
Yeah, I am okay with that solution, with it widening out, and maybe you can work with staff to kind of make sure that flows and is functional for you guys, but also provides what we're aiming to achieve.
Yeah, and I think this is nice because it doesn't necessarily set precedents to it. There's unique circumstances enough to make that work and to push this forward.
Can we get, for staff's clarification, how far back would we want the driveway to go at the width of the existing approach before it fans out? Are we talking about the rear corner of the structure or the rear corner of the neighboring structure, a halfway point of some sort? I just want to make sure that we know what we're expecting to see when they submit a revised site plan.
I think there's currently a 20-foot building limit, so maybe 25 feet or somewhere in there. I think it allows a nice landscape buffer. What was that?
So the owner of this quadplex is sitting right here. And, we're talking with him because essentially what we're proposing.
Can you speak into the mic for us? Sorry, so you're on record.
The owner of the quadplex is right here. You want to introduce yourself?
I'm Randy Ice, 119 Northwest 19th Street, and I'm president of the Oklahoma City Housing Redevelopment Corporation, known as Positively Paseo, and we own that quadplex, and we sold him the lot next door. Unbeknownst to us, we sold him 2 foot of our driveway without knowing about it, and apparently we're going to have to talk to our title attorney. But anyway, this is to correct a previously existing problem, and we are supportive of a common driveway agreement.
The point I was making there is that I just wanted to make sure it was okay with him, because if we made that the only entrance, essentially my only entrance to my house would be on his, 80% of it would be on his property. So would we be widening? So I know we're talking about having a narrower footprint at the very entrance, but would it be wider than it is right now? Is that kind of the plan? Like maybe we do like 12 feet coming in or whatnot, and then widen it out to that full amount after the landscaping?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that'd be fine.
Something like that would be fine?
Yeah.
And maybe begin to widen it at the end of the other structure, because your structure goes further back, so you can kind of start to flare out maybe towards the end of the back of his structure.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, one of my main concerns is just from a pedestrian's standpoint. You're walking along the sidewalk, and then you have these massive curb cuts and a drive that you're crossing with cars coming in and out. So it's kind of nice if you have a narrower curb cut and drive. There's less cars trying to come in and out. If it was two-way, maybe you'd have a little more traffic and you can kind of cross it quicker. So it just makes the pedestrian experience in the neighborhood nicer when you don't have these, series of wide drives essentially.
Good
So,
deal.
yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of my main concern.
And I'm assuming for both of you, you'll have like a covenant or some sort of easement agreement to ensure that any future sales of the property will be able to share the same driveway.
Yeah, we probably need to get some worked up there.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, you should look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion on this particular item? And Katie, do we need any specific details that you're looking for in this motion?
I think we're clear. We'd want to capture that the, approved with the condition that the driveway will retain the existing width at the approach and will widen to the proposed width at a specified location. I want to make sure we've agreed to that it would widen once it gets to the back corner of the neighboring property to the west.
Yeah, I was going to say, could it be simply the building limit line, or I'm looking at this site plan trying to see what would be like an easy, something quantifiable, which is right there. Yeah.
And the building line is
With a building-
forward of the structures.
So maybe the structure, we would say at the structure, it can.
So
Then you don't really get that green easement
That's
or
fair,
that green
that's
strip
fair,
that we were
that's
trying
fair.
to achieve.
Right.
So that's why I was
saying-
thinking the back of this other structure kind of begin to flare it out there. Like that's typically where, if you look at the normal neighborhood fabric on shared drives, it's after behind the structures when they start to separate so that they each have their own parking. So that would be my recommendation is the back of his structure, Mr. Ice's.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
Can I just clarify really quickly? I'm so sorry. So the existing apron is 10 feet. We would want to propose that that's 12 wide
That's great.
instead of the 18 and a half that we proposed. So we'd still want to widen it, but not, well, okay, I just want to clarify.
So you can have a curb cut of 12 feet and a driveway width of 12 feet, and then behind the back of the facade of Mr. Ice's structure, then you can begin to flare it out to widen for your.
Yeah.
What would you want on the facade?
Come to the mic, please. Come to the mic, please. Microphone.
What would you want there? Like just landscaping, like a tree or something? Is that
Greenery, grass.
greenery?
Grass,
Greenery, grass.
plant,
Okay.
shrubs.
Simple. Awesome.
Just a
Thank you.
planting space.
Okay, let's get a motion on this one.
Okay. So I will make a recommendation of approval for HPCA 2100120 to approve items, let's see. Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I believe that's all of them with the conditions and findings, except for on the driveway, where the driveway width would be 12 feet and would be able to extend at 12 feet until the end of the adjacent structure, the backside, where it can begin to flare out. I don't know if that covers everything. Okay.
Do we have a second?
I can second.
Moved by Commissioner Poore, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. The motion is passed unanimously. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Let's see. Moving on to item number HPCA 2100123 at 505 Northwest 42nd Street.
This is located in Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects for Barbara Chalet for certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove back porch elective, 2, construct new back porch elective, 3, construct fireplace and chimney elective, and 4, install outdoor kitchen elective. The only items that staff really noted with this is just that the roof form of their proposed covered porch, it's a very steep roof form, which makes it obviously a taller roof structure, and then the chimney of the proposed outdoor fireplace gets relatively much taller, in relation to the roof. It doesn't appear that it would be visible, or it would at least be minimally visible from the street. So staff did recommend approval of this application.
Okay. Is the applicant present?
I am here.
Excellent.
In the flesh.
Awesome.
As always, nice to see everyone. Yeah, the homeowner came to me wanting just a covered back porch. She also made it clear she wanted to incorporate some of the architectural elements of the home, fit in with the style of the neighborhood, but incorporate some her own improvements in the backyard. So we've brought a design we think can do that, can utilize some passive cooling in that area, get her the shade she needs so she's not just baking. That brick just holds that heat all day and emits it currently like into the evening hours, so she just can't even use her back porch. So when this is a good solution, like the staff has mentioned, minimally visible. And just so you guys know, obviously it's not ideal when we have to miss meetings, but this has sat in the queue a couple months. So I hope we can meet a resolution. Again, we're thrilled with the recommendation from staff for approval.
Okay. Any questions from commission members on this particular project?
I agree with staff. Seems pretty straightforward.
Agreed. Any citizens that wish to be heard? And Holly, can you state your name and address for the record, too, please?
Again, Holly Hunt, 400 Northwest 23rd Street, Sam Gresham Architects.
Perfect. Okay. Staff has recommended approval on these items. I'm comfortable with that. Do we
I'll
have
make a motion to approve HPCA 2100123, items 1, 2, 3, and 4 with the specific findings as noted in the staff report.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov.
That might be
Motion
the
passes.
easiest approval you ever had.
I was thinking the same thing. Excellent. Okay, moving on to item number HPCA 2100126 at 3625 North McKinley Avenue.
This is located in Putnam Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application by Corey Bates for Suzanne Broadbent for certificate of appropriateness to 1 replace fence elective. This is a somewhat unusual property in that the subject property faces east, trying to get my directions right. So their back fence is the side yard fence of the property directly west of them. They face east, their neighbor faces north. There is an existing chain link fence that comes well forward of the neighboring property into their front yard and then encloses the backyard of the subject property. They propose to replace that with a 5-foot stockade fence. Staff has recommended approval with some conditions that would ask them to make that a transparent fence back to the 40% mark on the side of that adjacent dwelling where we typically allow site-proof fencing to be installed.
Perfect. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Corey Bates, 1516 Northwest 36th Street. And just to be clear, I am the homeowner in the property on the west side of this project.
Okay.
So I've worked with Suzanne Broadbent on this, coming up with the proposal for the fence. She is fully supportive of it. In doing so, we submitted the application under her property.
Is she comfortable with the recommendation of staff to have the transparent fencing up to that 40% mark?
She is comfortable with what is being proposed. So what is being proposed is a 5-foot stockade fence. The full length of that existing fence. The existing fence is 5-foot chain link. We would actually use the existing posts, just take the chain link down and put a wood fence up. This is somewhat atypical in that you have a rear fence that's also acting as a side fence for my property. As far as transparency is concerned, greatly understand the concern with maintaining transparency within neighborhoods and how that affects the streetscape and visibility to properties. On this property, right now due to landscaping, it is pretty much opaque as it is, excuse me. And when we talk about visibility, I understand the guidelines are sensitive to that as it relates to views and vistas of public portions of yards and front facades from the street. And in this circumstance, changing that chain link fence to a stockade fence would only be concealing really someone's backyard, the side of a garage and the backyard. This proposal would match the existing stockade fence that is on the south side of the applicant property, as well as match the stockade fence that is on the west side of my property. And in the application, we included a rendering of what that would look like from the street view.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners?
First, I kind of agreed with the staff recommendation on the transparent, and I know that kind of follows the guidelines, but looking at, this image, another image I have in front of me here, I really don't see a concern with having that a 5-foot stockade fence. Just a condition, the kind of lay of the property and, with that existing landscaping, and it just really doesn't seem like it's taking anything away from that building. So to me, I could justify there being a unique circumstance based on the house configuration, the way those, kind of serves as a back. It's like, what do you decide it's a side fence or is it a backyard, So, I don't know. Personally, I think I'm pretty comfortable with the proposal.
I can get there too. Yep. Okay, any citizens that wish to be heard on this particular project? Gotta ask that. Do we have a motion? Or do we have any other comments, questions?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 2100126, items 1. I think that's the only item.
Yes.
With a unique condition that the property is kind of arranged in a way that the proposed fence will not have a detrimental effect on the building frontage.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Ryman Phillips, seconded by Commissioner Farzana. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Let's see, which one are we on? So we moved, we're on item number 13, HPCA 21.
No, we're on number 10, sorry.
Number 10,
Yes.
HPCA 2100127 at 721 Northwest 14th Street. Is the applicant present? Any citizens that wish to be heard? I believe this is the front porch project. Looked pretty straightforward and easy. I would be supportive of an approval.
Oh, hold on, sorry, which one? are we on?
HPCA 2100127.
Yes, okay, so this is the one, this is Ward 6, consideration possible action on application to replace the front porch floor. Staff's concerned with this, and the reason that we did not recommend approval on this one in particular is that the method of installation that is proposed for the porch is essentially to fill the exterior walls of the porch with concrete instead of using the traditional construction method of kind of a form on piers that is supporting a concrete slab. We don't typically get into the weeds with construction methodology, but we do have guidelines that address preserving and maintaining crawl spaces, ventilation. It's very important to the health of the building, and this would fill in the crawl space under the front porch. It raises concerns for staff about moisture getting into that area and having freeze-thaw expansion and contraction that could cause damage to the masonry of the porch itself, cause issues down the line. So our recommendation, I think actually we recommended approval with conditions that they modify the method of construction for the installation. I have notes that I'm keep forgetting to look at. Approve with condition that it be replaced in kind. The applicant is clearly not here for this application, so I don't know. Angela, have we heard anything from them since the staff reports went out? Okay. So this one might warrant one continuance,
Okay.
so we can, and if they agree to do it in the typical
Staff can
method of
approve it.
construction, staff can approve it
Okay.
administratively.
Oh,
That-
let's continue.
One question, yeah.
Do we have a motion?
To continue it to which, would it be the November 3rd date, or what date would you recommend?
I think November 3rd, since they're not here
Yeah,
today.
okay. I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 21-00127 to the November 3rd Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillip, seconded by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in PrimeGov. The continuance is unanimously approved for the November 3rd meeting. I think we had 2 withdrawals. We're on item number 13, HPCA 2100136 at 321 Northwest 14th Street.
Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Jeff Blake, Gumerson Blake Design Build, for Jeff Coffran for a certificate of appropriateness to replace driveway elective, 2 replace fence elective, 3 demolish garage elective, and 4 construct garage elective. This was recommended for approval with conditions related to the driveway approach, and specifically the radius of the approach. There's guidelines related to that and to the finish of the concrete at the driveway, providing some clarification on specifications for materials at the garage. That's just a submit to staff. And then guidelines related to, or conditions related to the fence placement. There's an existing gate. I think we need to verify where that is and where the new fence would be going to confirm that that meets the guidelines for setbacks.
Okay.
We did receive comments from the Neighborhood Association that I think you have at your, you should have at your seats. I don't appear to have them at my seat. There is a representative from the neighborhood, just in case you have any comments for them, questions from them.
Okay. Does the applicant wish to speak?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward. The garage was structurally unsound, and we're going to build it back within the scale of what the property allows, the size of what it allows. And we're preserving all the architectural details down to the glass in the garage doors. And it doesn't have a great public view, so you're kind of seeing it right there. And but no, we're just matching all the finishes and just putting it back where it was. Oh, and then Angela asked that we inherited this fence, the gate and the fence. It is where it is when they bought the house. They're new owners, and so we're committed to changing out the wood to match the iron. I can't speak to the setback. I didn't install it, but there it is. So.
Okay. Do we have citizens that wish to be heard?
Randy Ice with the Heritage Hills Design Review Committee. You have our comments. Our basic concern is that the garage is not dilapidated. We don't believe the report from the engineer. We don't believe it's accurate. We believe the garage could be preserved. We believe the garage was twice proposed to be moved in 1999 and 2000. This commission turned that down. They wanted to move the house and the garage. We insisted upon them remaining in place, and so did the commission at that time. Since then, the garage has deteriorated. This is demolition by neglect, which we see too frequently in the historic district, and it is something that has got to be stopped. And we believe this garage is a one-story structure. It could be jacked up. The footings could be replaced. The plate could be replaced. It is not a complicated building. All right, that's our basic concern. This is a very historic house, a very historic garage. I know it's in the back, but all these outbuildings contribute to the historic nature of these neighborhoods, and we are losing them right and left. You've had several others here today that have gone. All right, and our concern is we're going to lose all of our garages if we don't start putting a line somewhere and saying we've got to save these buildings. I mean, this is as old as the house. All right, so these are very historic structures. And I drove by one just on the way here in the neighborhood where somebody's jacked up the side, they're repouring a footing, they're putting in a new plate. It was worse than this was. It can be done. In fact, it's much cheaper than putting up a new garage, okay? I suspect in a day or two you could have a new footing poured and the garage put back down. This is not a complicated structure. it doesn't even weigh that much. The guy who's doing it looked to me like he was using a car jack to jack up the side of his garage, okay? That's how simple these buildings are. Now, I'm not suggesting that, and I would probably suggest to get an engineer, but it looked like the man was doing it himself, okay? That's how simple these buildings are, these outbuildings behind the buildings. Now, the biggest problem with this one is it's built on top of the sewer easement, and it's built way too close to the neighbor's house, okay? And that's probably why it was not maintained properly, although it was maintained properly for the first 100 years of its existence, okay, until the last 20 years when the problems came in. And I'm not blaming this man, okay? He did not own this house for the last 20 years. But he's proposing to put it right back in the same location where it's very difficult to maintain it because there's such a small amount of room between the building and the property line. You know, there's a reason we ask people to set buildings back a little bit so that they can maintain them, okay? Paint them, keep the drainage proper and things of that nature. And we're going to go right back. And I understand going back in the same location because that is historically where it was. But the best way to handle that is to fix the existing garage. That's our concern. We do not have any concerns. If you decide to tear it down, we do not have any concerns with the new proposed garage because he's trying his best to match it, okay? This is mostly about, we're speaking out on demolition by neglect.
I tend to agree that that's a major problem. I think we're going to keep seeing it more and more as, you know, we're just kind of getting into that age of these garages that are just deteriorated beyond repair. And so I think we're probably going to see quite a bit of that going forward. I'm inclined to accept the engineer's report that Mr. Blake has provided indicating that the driveway is deteriorated beyond repair. And so I think I can get on board with supporting staff's recommendations for approvals on this particular project.
I agree, yeah.
Do we have any questions? Okay. Katie, anything we need to address specifically?
I do know we need to vote separately on the demolition, I think,
Okay.
and the rest of the items.
Yes. So the application, and I may have to defer to Angela because she worked this one more closely than I did. On the fence, we had recommended conditions that the applicant provide documentation regarding decorative iron fencing on the south face and detail the distance from the corner of the dwelling prior to release of the certificate, just to document that component of the fencing to see if that's consistent with the guidelines. Transparent fencing is supposed to be located 6 feet or more back from the front wall of the dwelling. And as I understand it, they're not proposing to move the fence, just to replace the wood fencing with wrought iron style fencing. Is that accurate? So,
Do we have any idea how long that's been there, or that fence?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, do we have any idea how long that fence has been there?
We know exactly how long it's been there.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I wrote it down. However, it was installed previously without a certificate of appropriateness. A certificate of appropriateness was eventually issued indicating that the fence should be placed according to the guidelines that were in place at that time, which matched the current guidelines. And the fence was not relocated to that approved location. So what we have is a fence that is not quite meeting the current criteria. The applicant has agreed to remove the wood fencing in order to provide the most transparent proposal as possible. They would prefer not to relocate it, I would presume. I'm not sure. But the fence is going to be removed in order to do the repairs to the sidewalks and the driveway and that sort of thing. I don't believe I have a good photograph for you of how closely this aligns with the abutting property to the west.
And did you say it was 6 feet back from the front of the?
Yes.
For
so
transparent?
Transparent fencing is supposed to be
close.
set back 6 feet from the front, not from the front of the front porch, but from the front wall of the enclosed space on the structure.
It seems like it's like maybe 4 feet.
Is that
or
bay
3
relevant
feet.
to the 6 foot?
Well,
Right. It seems like, I mean, he'd be moving it back like 2 feet or a foot or something, maybe.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
where
it
it's at
wouldn't be
now.
a
Yeah.
vastly significant amount, and obviously you've got a bump out there that you have to work around too.
I think with the replacement of the.
Would the applicant be amenable to moving it back to 2 feet to
I'd
make this
point
work?
out, if we went all iron on this, this is a great picture to look at. I would argue that the distance of 6 feet back from that corner is far less relevant aesthetically than the alignment of the neighbor's fence. I mean, aesthetically, I think for the neighborhood, that's a winner to be in plane. And so can we consider that as a driver?
Very unique circumstance at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the big visual impact here for sure is the opaque fence versus the iron fence. And moving it back 2 feet, I'm not sure that's going to have a significant impact on the character of that building, so.
I like the consistent lines between the two fences between those houses too.
I agree.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 2100136, item 3, to demolish the garage.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillip, second by Commissioner Poore. Please vote in prime gov. Demolition is unanimously approved. Do we have another motion?
And I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 2100136, items 1, 2, and 4, with the specific findings that, the site conditions, the current fence location is acceptable, however, that the opaque facing be replaced with transparent fencing.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Raymond Phillip, second by Commissioner Milner. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. That motion was passed unanimously as well. Okay, that takes care of everything in our items for individual consideration. We have 2 items under other business. Item number 7, which is the 2022 schedule of regular meetings.
Sorry, I have to head out. I
We
apologize.
lose quorum.
No,
Are we good from here?
quorum is 4, so 1,
Oh.
2, 3, 4.
We're good.
Yep.
Good.
Good seeing you guys.
Good to see you too.
Yes.
Coming.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for your
absolutely.
time.
Appreciate it. See you guys next time.
Thanks, Commissioner. Okay, item number, I believe this is 7, under item 7, other business.
We'll take care of it.
We need a motion to approve the schedule of 2022 regular meetings. Do we have a motion? Is that all we need, Katie?
Yep, we just
Okay.
need a motion for the schedule of regular meetings and a motion for the schedule of regular workshop meetings. And I don't think we have anything crazy going on with either of these as far as moved meeting dates and holidays and that sort of thing, so,
So can I make a motion to approve our 2022 schedule of regular meetings?
yes.
Do we have a second? Moved by Commissioner Milner, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. Motion passes unanimously. How about item number 8, the 2022 schedule of regular workshop meetings? We have a motion to approve that schedule.
I'd motion to approve the 2022 schedule of regular workshop meetings.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Milner, second by Commissioner Poore. All in favor, please vote in prime gov. That item was also passed unanimously. Let's see. Katie, what do we have on item number 8, communication and reports?
We have lots and lots and lots of administrative approvals. Feel free at any time to contact staff if you have questions about those. 1 withdrawal to report and no administrative closures. We did not get these recorded on the agenda, but as we noted before, that SPUD 1327 has already been to council and been approved. Or no, I'm sorry, it's been to Planning Commission and goes to City Council on the 12th. And then Planning Commission will hear SPUD 1336 that you all just reviewed today at their next Planning Commission meeting on October 14th. And nothing of note, all of those BOA cases will go to the next available Board of Adjustment hearing.
Okay. Rita, anything from the Municipal Counselor's Office?
No.
Okay. Our next regularly scheduled meeting date for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, November 3rd at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Council Municipal Building City Council Chambers. New applications for this meeting will need to be were received by October 5th. New information on projects continued from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, October 12th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, from 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main Street, Suite 900. Any items from commissioners?
I do.
Yes, sir.
I won't take long, I promise.
Hey, you're good.
But why he's here, while Randall's here, can I ask him a question?
Absolutely.
Randall, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, on the record or off the record?
On the record.
Good. Transparency.
Randall, it's nice to put a face with a name, because this is, I think, the first time you've been here that I've been here since we've been on Zoom forever.
I'm normally seeing you on Zoom.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Can you just very briefly tell me, because I appreciate your comments about the demolition of garages. And when you say demolition by neglect, are you saying the ownership of the property is allowing that to become uninhabitable, to where it forces it into, well, now we're just going to just so we can.
That's right. They don't control the drainage.
Okay.
They don't keep the building painted so that the wood doesn't rot.
Okay.
If you looked at the pictures of the garage we just decided to tear down, the plate at the bottom was rotted.
Okay.
That's from water infiltration. That's because they didn't control the drainage around the garage.
Okay.
You have to rake your leaves around your garage.
Right.
Okay, you can't let them get 3 foot deep and leave them there for 12 years.
Right.
Okay, and you have to paint the garage. And these are just regular routine things that you have to do to maintain a building that's made out of wood.
Yeah.
And now you can't, like I said, I fixed them myself on my own property. Much worse than that. I had one, the entire roof had caved in, okay? And I repaired it. In fact, the neighborhood just bought 104 Northwest 20th after 3 engineers told me that if I went inside, I was going to die of black mold and every other kind of contaminant,
Okay.
Including the engineer that wrote this report.
Okay.
And the neighborhood actually went in and bought the property, and we found somebody to rehab it, and it's being rehabbed right now. You just approved at one of your previous meetings an entire new thing. Anything can be fixed, okay? That's our position. Now, the Heritage Hills official name is Historic Preservation Incorporated. I mean, we are the oldest neighborhood. We're the ones that basically wrote this ordinance to protect these houses. And from our perspective, protecting the buildings is the ultimate goal. And the only time you're going to see us go for a demolition is when something is basically burned to the ground. Okay, we go in and we go, hey, we can fix this. It's possible. But what really irritates us is when you have property owners, and this guy's he bought the place this way. But 20 years ago, this place was good enough to pick up and move to Jefferson Park, and you turned it down twice. And so, obviously, up till 20 years ago, for the preceding 100 years, this building's roughly statehood, okay? For the preceding 100 years, they had maintained the garage properly. And then the guy that couldn't move it got mad and said, I'll stick it to him. I won't paint it. I won't rake the leaves. I won't stop the water from rushing through my garage. I'll let it rot. And then they'll have to tear it down. And that's what bothers us. Intentional contempt of the ordinance.
Okay. Yeah. Which happens by the way that you've described, or, it's neglected, then let's say the property's sold and a new owner comes in, they had nothing to do with that neglect. They just inherited it. So it can happen both ways.
And that may be the case here.
Okay.
Now I would say it can still be fixed.
But what I'm trying to get at is you're thinking if we keep allowing those demolitions to happen, it's kind of reiterating that is a method to go about getting your garage demolished.
That's exactly right.
I'm talking this out loud. I just want to make sure I understand
that's what we're worried about.
what you were saying on there, because
I know it's kind of a theoretical thing, but the bottom line is if we keep tearing them down, they're going to keep neglecting them because they know that's the way to tear them down.
I would say that's not theoretical. I think that's actual. I mean, that is truly that is what's happening. It's frustrating. it's not right. all
And
of that.
in some cases, they're doing it, now this gentleman does not want a mega garage, but they come in here, whoops, and they want giant garages.
Yep.
You know, they have a little garage, they want a giant garage, and they want quarters on top they can rent out.
Right, right.
Okay?
Which-
And
right.
you know, and so the way to accomplish that is to not paint your little garage and not take care of your little garage, because in 5 or 10 years, you can get a big garage.
Okay. So my last question, because I don't want to hold this up any longer, but with the design review committee you're on with Heritage Hills, how do you work with the neighborhood? I mean, do you guys have big neighborhood meetings where
Yes.
you're open to everybody and you're I'm assuming already, I just want to make sure I know I'm hearing it from you. You guys go in there and educate people and say,
We try. We have a 50-member board.
Okay.
And I have to give them a report every month. And then the board is elected from the neighborhood as a whole. And we have an annual meeting, and I talk about it too.
Okay.
So my committee that writes that report you see every month, there's 12 people on it.
Okay.
Most of them are Heritage Hills board members, but there are some others.
Okay.
And that's where that group comes from.
Okay.
We're the most active historic preservation neighborhood in the city, obviously. I mean, I show up every month. Okay, and before I was chair of this committee, I was down here a lot. I've been coming to this thing for 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and so there's a lot you sense my passion because I've been fighting this battle for 40 years, and I've done this over and over and over, and it's frustrating because you see the same patterns. It's just new players and a new garage or a new house. Sometimes it's the whole house goes down.
I really appreciate your passion because I can tell, and you stick out every meeting, almost to the end with us. So I do appreciate, even if you don't have an agenda item. Has it ever been an agenda item specifically at a Heritage Hills meeting? We're going to talk about garages.
Yes.
Okay.
I've talked about it ad nauseum.
And a hot button issue to go out in the neighborhood saying, we're going to talk about garages, the demolition, the construction of these, from a small garage to a 2-story with living quarters, and
they get very worked up. Well,
I imagine they do.
Well, now the one we bought at 104 20th, that was an entire house. We coughed up $80,000 to buy that house from the person that had 3 engineers tell us we were all going to die if we walked in the front door. Okay, and we bought it, and we found somebody to fix it, and we sold it. Now, luckily, we sold it for the same thing we bought it for. We held on to it for about 6 months. So but the neighborhood's willing to put the money up. And we take that money from our people, okay? They pay dues for that. And we file lawsuits. We do everything we can. We have a legal defense fund. We try. But if we can't get people to cooperate, there's 50 people on our board. There's like 600 houses in Heritage Hills, okay? I think at least, you're in Heritage Hills, aren't you? Yeah, okay, we have one of your commissioners lives in Heritage Hills, and maybe some others that aren't here. I don't know. There's been a lot of turnover on this board, okay? And I appreciate you all coming because every time I get these notices, we don't have a quorum, I'm thinking, oh, great. Somebody else is going to be mad at me because they couldn't get their job done, okay? And of course, a lot of the neighbors blame our committee because something happens, okay? And it's just part of the job, okay? You have to have kind of a thick skin.
I appreciate you answering questions because I don't live in Heritage Hills. So I just want to make sure I understand how it works, how you guys run it there. Because at the same time, I understand what you're saying and where you're coming from. I think, and I'm only speaking as me, I'm not talking for any of the other commissioners, just me personally, that if the day came and I was like, I get where you're coming from, I just need to know you guys are making every effort plus 100% to tell the neighborhood this isn't going to be allowed anymore.
We are trying. And when our meetings are open to anybody in the neighborhood. In fact, most of the time, if it's a significant thing, the people come and meet with us. We meet the Sunday night before you meet. We've been meeting on somebody's porch because of the pandemic, but we have big porches in Heritage Hills, okay? And so we meet outside, and we met all during the lockdown outside, okay? And we talk to these people, and we say, here's what we suggest. It was kind of like the porch case. They didn't come, but you saw my comments. I told you how the porches were built originally. They're with piers, and they want to fill it in, which is not necessarily bad, but they just just got to be careful they don't cave in the basement wall, all right? Because I've seen that happen before, and then the whole front of the building comes off, okay? And sometimes we provide advice like that to people.
Okay.
You know, did you think about this? Or this is what that was originally for. And we've got people on that committee. Mrs. Kerr is our oldest member, okay? She's lived in the neighborhood for 60 years. All right, and she knows all these houses and exactly what has happened to them over the years. She's the one that told me that door you took away a few months ago was for coal deliveries. Now, I didn't know it was for coal deliveries, but Mrs. Kerr knew because she'd seen people deliver coal through it, okay? So these are things that you pick up as you go.
Thank you for answering my questions and staying longer, and good luck on your home tour in 2 weeks.
And you can come to our meetings anytime, Sunday night, Shannon Rundell's porch, okay?
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
We all appreciate your efforts and everything that you do to support historic preservation too. So, okay. Any citizens that wish to be heard, Randy? You're good. All right, we will adjourn. No motion necessary. Thank you, commission members, for sticking it out and for being here today. Great to see everybody in person. Not bad. Yeah, nailed it. 5:02.
Thank you, guys. Yep.